The stadium is packed for day one of the Fixed Ops Roundtable Tailgate Touchdown event. Put your game face on as we cheer for the best team in Fixed Ops. Here to kick off the show is our team captain and host, Katrina Ness.
Good morning, I'm Katrina Ness from Northwood University. The Fixed Ops Roundtable welcomes you to the season kickoff of our fan favorite 4-day event. So cheer for your favorite team in automotive as we hit the green on the first day of the Fixed Ops Roundtable's Tailgate Touchdown event. Get the play-by-play with the Fixed Ops Roundtable by using the chat feature on the right side of your screen. Just be sure to select everyone and not just hosts and panelists. Step it up with sports commentary with Steve Greenfield as he shares his predictions of the future of automotive retail.
Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Sarah Vantine here with Ted Ings and Steve Greenfield of Automotive Ventures. Steve always has some incredible insights to share with us, Ted. I'm looking forward to what he has to share today.
I am long-awaited Steve Greenfield. Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Sarah, Ted, it's great to be here as always. I'm glad to be a recurring guest, and I'm really looking forward to digging in today.
And you know, fixed operations, what a part of the dealership. Amazing. The interest, Steve, continues to grow. And I know you've got your finger on the pulse of the industry. So what are you seeing out there? And, what are the trends right now?
Well, I think that's the big trend, right? So dealers, while variable ops made a lot of profit during COVID, now we're getting back to pre-COVID norms, and fixed ops is more important than ever in terms of, one, dealers can actually control the business on that side of the business and pull levers to drive more profitability. But as margins are going to continue to erode on the front end of the car deal and variable ops in general, dealers who have been sleeping, who haven't been paying attention, had better get and sharpen the saw, right, around fixed operations and make sure that cylinder is firing at full horsepower, to use the automotive metaphor, because they're going to have less and less control over inventories mounting on the new car side. Whether or not they can actually find good quality young 2 or 3 year old used vehicles. But the one thing they can control, Ted, as you've always talked about, is you can control your fixed operations and make sure it's running very well, and you're squeezing as much profitability out of fixed ops as possible. So I think this trend is going to be top of mind here in a couple of weeks when we're at NADA, because dealers are going to be like going, okay, good. What can I control, and how do I drive more profitability out of my operations?
One of the things, Steve, that Sarah and I recently experienced, we were up in Michigan in early October at Northwood University, and they had their first annual auto industry summit. And it brought together a collection of dealers and industry folks, and Sarah and I had a chance to participate in that. And one of the things that we heard that was a recurring topic, where the dealers were talking about this, margin compression and so on, and the focus now on the industry being more of a hospitality industry. And the comparison to that, you see some leading dealers that we all know on the stage here, but that kept coming up and seemed to resonate with the audience, Steve, the fact that comparing ourselves to hospitality and a lot of the things that are done there, and the audience seemed to be in full agreement on that.
Yeah, so I think three things maybe. I mean, this was the big conclusion I had in the book that I published a couple of years ago, is like the one big thing that dealers can do to differentiate is how they treat consumers. Dealers are selling the same cars and conducting the same service with the same parts for consumers across the U.S. How should they be looking at differentiating? The one big thing they can do is think about, how am I going to meet consumer expectations and exceed those consumer expectations overall? And that hasn't changed. It won't change. You look at huge brands like Apple and Amazon. What they did was they were super deliberate, 20, 30 years ago, with saying, we're going to excel in over delivering on consumer expectations. We're going to continuously examine where there are rough spots in the consumer experience, and then take off the edges. And as we all know, as we see with CSI surveys, there continue to be rough spots where consumers don't necessarily always have the best experience with dealers. And if you have an enterprising dealer who wants to differentiate in a world of sameness, the best way to differentiate is like really get inside the head of the consumer and anticipate what their needs are, and just do a better job, right? I mean, you talk to dealers who have really focused on lifetime value of the consumer, and they just do better. They do better than the other dealers in their local market who are very myopically focused on just getting through the next month. And if you can think long-term value creation with your consumers, everybody wins.
Well, Steve, I'm glad you also brought up the piece about that lifetime, like long-term value of the customer, because in the conversation around hospitality and around some of the innovations that dealers can be taking on, right now, a lot of dealers are also scrutinizing a lot of the budget that they have for things like vendor partner spends. And so I know you had some perspectives on some of those pieces, but how does a dealer balance that equation of customer experience and maintaining a good customer-centric approach while also being mindful of what they're spending on their vendor partner pieces?
Yeah, this is a great question and very top of mind for dealers right now, especially with NADA being so close and having the opportunity to get in and, one, meet with all of your existing vendors, and two, look at new vendors. And I think that if you look at pre-COVID, the average dealer rooftop was generating just over $2 million a year net profit before tax, and that tripled during COVID. Largely because of variable ops, not fixed ops, but you had like a lot of margin being generated on new car sales, on used car sales, both on the front and the back end of the car sale. And while we haven't returned back down to pre-COVID profit levels, where it's getting down there pretty quickly. I mean, we're drifting down in lockstep with every passing year to get back to something that looks like a 2% gross to net overall. And I think it's, dealers are feeling this, Sarah, to your point. I mean, they're feeling it, and they're looking at their operations and saying, "Ooh, man, we're getting squeezed year over year. with every month. I'm delivering a little less profit, and largely because of the front end of the car deal getting squeezed back to where it was before. We're getting back to like oversupply for many of the brands, and incentives coming back, and less consumer demand for a lot of these new vehicles that are out there. It's a very competitive environment. So back to where we started the conversation today, where do you have control? You actually have control over your fixed operations. Always have, always will. I'm starting to talk like Ted now, but he's taught me well. He's taught me well. But I do think, Sarah, I mean, your point, there's going to be, for the vendors that are listening in today, just expect that your dealers are going to continue to look at the line item that's a cost every month and say, am I justified in continuing to spend the money on this vendor? And start to prepare for conversations and be proactive with your dealers to say, you need to be reinforcing the value you're delivering to the dealer in an environment where their margins are going to continue to be compressed. And you need to not only justify, well, phase one is justify their spend with you every month. Otherwise, you're at great risk of cancellation. Two would be beyond that, again, just like we talked about the dealer getting inside the head of the consumer, as a vendor, you need to get inside the head of the dealer and say, look, I can empathize with these dealers that the profitability is getting squeezed. And year over year, it looks worse than a year ago. How can I help them alleviate some of that margin compression across their operations and be creative with them, get on the same side of the table? Because otherwise, I think that there are going to be a lot of hard conversations over the next quarter with dealers versus vendor. And vendors had better get ahead of this and preempt some of those conversations.
Great advice, Steve. Speaking of getting squeezed, we have talked about inventories and inventory levels and what they look like now compared to the last year or two. And that includes gas, combustion engine and EVs and so on. What are you seeing out there right now in terms of inventories, and what should we be looking at?
Yeah, so just great question. So just to calibrate everybody, sort of before COVID, we got up to about 4 million new vehicles sitting on dealers' lots in the US, and obviously varied greatly by brand, but that was too much inventory. Days of sale were too high. Incentives had gotten almost up to 10% of MSRP, which wasn't healthy to really move and stimulate consumer demand to move some of these cars that were backing up on dealers' lots. And then, fast forward 2 years, in 2022, that number was below 1 million. So we went from 4 million in stock to less than a quarter of that, at which point, we had the vast majority of cars selling way above MSRP. There was way more demand than there was supply. This is why dealers made so much money during, that year 2022, right in the midst of COVID. I think what we're seeing is while inventories have not, thankfully, gotten back to 4 million vehicles, we are about hovering at around 3 million vehicles, and incentives are coming back, especially for certain brands. And not to call out anyone in particular, but I will, like Stellantis in particular, has had a lot of challenges. And you talk to Stellantis dealers, and they've really, really struggled. Certain models just not moving at all and backing up, and the automakers having to come back and alleviate some of that with a lot of stimulation with incentives. And I think, we will get back to a more normalized amount of inventory on dealers' lots. I don't know. I don't know, and I hope we won't get back to 4 million. I think we were oversupplied at that point. But, this is the problem. I mean, dealers are downstream of what the OEMs produce, both the models and if there's demand for those models and the number of those models. And dealers are like magicians, right? They need to make magic happen at the end of every month to move the cars off the lot. And they're incredibly gifted at doing so. But it may be that you're conceding a lot on the front end gross on the vehicles, which takes us back to the conversation about the importance of fixed operations.
And Steve, the fixed operations conversation increasingly is one that Ted and I are hearing a lot of. And Ted and I had a panel recently that we were really surprised to be hearing about the price inflation that's happening, when it comes to the parts and the repair side of the business too. And so, Steve, I'd love your perspective from your point of view. What are you seeing out there as it pertains to how dealers can navigate, the complexities as, the dollar amount, as the cost per vehicle continues to go up, and the cost to repair and service these vehicles continues to go up? How does a dealer really strike that balance with being profitable in fixed operations when the new car side and the used car side is also in a struggle?
Yeah, so it's a great point. I mean, it's been a decade that we've asked dealers what your biggest pain point is, and it's been a shortage of technicians. Now it's compounded, Sarah, with your point, or in a shortage of parts, specifically through COVID. But even now, many times, a dealer will get a car up on the lift and find out that they can't get the parts, in a timely fashion to get the repair done. And all of this should be able to be solved through startups or technology solutions, which, at the point of scheduling the service, we should know, get the part in stock, make sure the part's available for that technician when the car gets up on the lift, et cetera. So in this day and age, you would think with all these data-based solutions, we would have a better way of anticipating what demand was and ensuring these parts are in stock. But for whatever reason, we're still falling down in some of these cases. So I think that the cars are getting more complex and the parts are getting more specialized. The technician skill set is getting more specialized. The tools needed to work on the cars is getting more specialized. I think the genie is out of the bottle on all of those things. And I think the good part of that blade, if it's a double-edged blade, the good part is that consumers are going to be more loyal to getting the work done at franchise dealers, period. Because the average independent repair shop is not going to be equipped to be able to work on these increasingly complex vehicles. The flip side, as you said, Sarah, is like you're going to need technicians that are able to continue to upgrade their skills. You're going to need to pay for OEM endorsed tools that you're going to need to work on these cars. And then your hourly rate is inevitably going to increase, and you're going to have to pass that along to the consumer, or you're going to get squeezed in terms of your margins. And so it is a game that's, the rules are being rewritten as we go here, but it's very clear that there's a lot of pros, but there's a lot of operational challenges, and you had best be on your best game, or it could be really challenging for dealers to keep up with these increasing cycles of change in the industry.
Steve, something we have never discussed with you before, but on the heels of things that we're talking about right now, is the technician becoming more front-facing, more customer-facing. And as part of that, we all know that video has become part of all of our lives. It's intertwined in everything we do, and we've seen the sales side use it very effectively. And I'm speaking now to the technician using the video to alert the customer as to what the vehicle needs, and being able to do that where the customer hears directly from the technician and is able to, make a decision and approve that work or not, or have questions, and do it all remotely by their phone. We've seen a lot of dealers now, adopting that very successfully. What are some of your thoughts on that technician and the front-facing technician, and the role perhaps changing a little bit of that tech?
Yeah, I think this may very well be the best technology we've seen in fixed ops in the last couple of years, right? So it's a total win-win. You need to make sure that your technician can communicate and articulate. They don't have to be great on camera, but they have to be okay on camera, be able to hold up their phone, get good lighting, get close enough to the area that they're going to recommend the work needs to be done, and then be able to talk through it in a way that's understandable for the folks on the other side. So it may take some training. Not all technicians are necessarily camera ready, but with a little bit of training, I think this can be super effective. The consumer gets an update halfway through the day with a video for the recommended work. As a result, it's really easy for them to understand without having to talk to anyone. Understand, okay, I see why they're trying to upsell me this work. I've watched the video. I feel comfortable now that there actually is a problem. I've seen it with my own eyes. Give the approval. And I think the dealers that are using video are very effective at convincing consumers to start approving of work that otherwise they might have been cautious around. But equally important, the consumer comes away with more trust and just feels more confident, and the CSI scores are higher. So for me, it's a total win-win. If you aren't using video, you should definitely be experimenting with video. But it is a bit, like I said at the beginning, it's a bit of an investment, because you may have technicians that just really push back and say, I don't want to be on video, and that's extra work, etc. Hopefully you can create a win-win, because they realize that CSI goes up, take rate goes up, conversion rate for upsells goes up, and it should be a win-win overall. And Ted, to your point, I think this may be the best technology that I've seen hit fixed operations in the last couple of years.
Steve, it's so interesting, all of these pieces. We have been talking about all of the pieces in the dealership that the dealers need to be mindful of. I want to pivot the conversation a little bit into, some of the things coming up. We're coming into a new year. We're getting ready for things on the horizon, and a lot of dealers are going, all right, so what do I need to be concerned or mindful of on the horizon? Are there any challenges that you see out there that a dealer needs to be thinking about, aside from, the parts and the inventory? Are there other factors at play that we're not considering?
Yeah, I think so, Sarah. I mean, one, although everyone's gotten fatigue, I think already with the buzzworthiness of AI. I think the promise should be very practically for a dealer that your phones and your email leads and chat should be now manned 24 hours a day, right? So there's no excuse that after hours, if a consumer calls in either to check the status of their car or to schedule an appointment to get work done, that you shouldn't have an automated bot that does a really, really good job of satisfying that need and getting that person. This is not a message to say, oh, we'll get back to you at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. This is, hey, Sarah, what work would you like done? Here's the availability, on our calendar. Can I get you scheduled? And then send out the calendar invite to the consumer. That should all be something that if you aren't doing, you should be looking for a vendor that can help you do that. There's a number of them out there. I won't name any names, but I mean, that's one thing. So you should have your vendors be working for you 24/7 to just help your business. You should come in the morning and have 7 more service schedules appointed and put on the calendar. I think other things that I'd be looking at is this. I put in the process automation bucket, right? Whether it's sending warranty claims back to the automaker and automating that, or loading up your bays correctly. Like I'm always amazed with dealers. Like I said earlier, every dealer will say I have a shortage of technicians, but then when you look at their bays and how their bays are being loaded, are you loading the right technician with the right work? That technician that's been working on complex jobs for like 12 years should be getting different work than the folks that have just like graduated from Northwood and are like 3 months in. But that isn't necessarily the way that the bays get loaded and the technicians get loaded up. So you should be leaning on your fixed operations vendors to try to make sure that you're running your operations as efficiently as possible to get the most revenue and profit per employee. If they aren't able to help you solve those problems, there are vendors out there that can help you with those kinds of things. And at the end of the day, you should be aspiring to year-over-year increases in gross profit out of all of your departments, including your parts and service departments. And if you aren't hitting records, then you should be looking for vendors that can help you do so.
Steve, great advice as always. Tell us a little bit more. If our audience wants to reach out to you at Automotive Ventures, you're involved with so much up and coming things in our industry. You know about things before they happen, it seems. What's the best way to reach out to you and learn more about what you're doing there?
Well, the good thing is I'm not hard to find. So if you just Google Steve Greenfield, you can find me. We have a weekly newsletter that goes out at 7 a.m. Eastern on Mondays. If you like that content about the industry and all these changes that are going on, you can do that. I have a book on Amazon.com and a second book coming shortly. If you want to reach out to me directly, I'm happy just to send you a copy, no cost. I'll ship it over to you via Amazon. You'll have it the next day. And then you can go to automotiveventures.com and check out what we do. We are looking to invest in the next wave of innovative companies that are going to benefit car dealers. So if you come across a company that seems intriguing, let me know. And if you're looking for new technologies, I want to be a resource to the industry. Don't be shy. Just reach out to me. You can email me, call me, or send me a LinkedIn message.
Great. Well, Steve, thank you so much. And on behalf of the Fixed Ops Roundtable, Sarah and I want to wish you and your family a very happy Thanksgiving next week. And thank you for all you do for the industry.
Thank you both. And yeah, have a great holiday here coming up.
All right. Everybody, Steve Greenfield from Automotive Ventures here with us today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
morning started like normal, catching up on emails. There was one that I could have sworn was from Lucy, our billing clerk, but apparently it wasn't.
The next day was same as always. There was no way of knowing that someone else was in our system. While we were working, they were searching for data. Passwords, bank information, point of sale systems. It was all behind the scenes. Turns out, they were searching for any valuable data and destroying all of our backups.
I think their goal was to inflict maximum damage. We had antivirus software installed on all of our systems. We thought we were protected. I think that false assurance made us an easy target.
I was the first to notice that my system was completely locked out. No one's computers were working. There was no DMS. We couldn't service cars, write ROs, close deals, anything. Everything came to a grinding halt.
5 different stores for 5 days, completely down, inoperable. It was absolute hell.
Hey, it's Jim Sabino here, All-American Ford Mobile Service at your service. Check this baby out. This is one of our newest units to add to our fleet of mobile vans to service you, our customers. Coming around back here, I'm going to show you inside exactly how this van works for you. All right, as you can see, this is a fully equipped mobile service van that does everything. It's like a mobile hospital. That's right, we can do it all in this truck. Come on inside, I'm going to get into the details on how this baby works for you. So we can do oil changes. We got oil filters on stock, air filters, wiper blades, cabin air filters, recalls. We have this laptop here. There's all the programming of all the modules, and any recall that we can do on the road, we will do it for you. That's right. Check this out. Look at this equipment that we have in this truck. Fully equipped, mobile technicians come to you. Certified technicians at your site, at your place of business. You call us, text us, email us. Our mobile service coordinator will take all your information, make the appointment, and our mobile van will show up on location at your convenience, perform the service that you need. All American Ford Mobile Service, check us out.
This player is warmed up and ready to rumble. Let's toss it to our next speaker, Brian Kramer from Accu-Trade.
Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Sarah Vantine here with Brian Kramer of Cars, Commerce, and Accu-Trade. Brian, thank you for being on the roundtable with us today.
No, thanks for having me.
Well, Brian, there's a lot of discussion in the industry right now. And one of the topics that you've been talking about recently that a lot of dealers are paying attention to very closely, Carvana. What is going on with Carvana?
Well, it seems like Carvana, is a juggernaut. And, everybody will say it's an overnight success, but I think that they've gone through a ton of adversity and they made a lot of the tough decisions along the way to stay true to their brand. And, they really pioneered sight unseen appraisals, I think, and they really standardized it to where they've got CarMax having to adjust their strategy, and really every franchise dealer in the country rethinking the way that they appraise cars virtually and sight unseen. And I think that they are right now, well, their share price would obviously indicate that they're blazing a trail and doing some things that nobody else has ever done. But I think it's very interesting how they're moving their GPU, which last quarter was combined. This is front end gross, back end gross, wholesale, and all in, but it was like $7,600, GPU,
Wow.
which is unheard of. And, according to the shareholders report, they didn't do it just by raising their prices. They did it by increasing their speed to market through service. So the reconditioning centers at all their locations when they bought Odessa have now turned into basically like an assembly line. So by not asking more for the vehicles, but reducing the average days to sale through reconditioning, logistics, transportation, and just overall efficiency, how accurate they're appraising assessing the reconditioning from a dollar standpoint, as well as making sure the tires, they're scanning with an OBD. So minimizing the spillage, if you will, of what they estimated for reconditioning versus what the actual recondition is when it came out of the shop. And right now, they, 2 years ago, I would say that, that was a major weakness for them. But it seems as of late that they're probably, have gone from worst in the group to best overall. And it's allowing them to sell cars more quickly. And the difference when you can sell a car, let's say 7 to 14 days faster, is the difference between, it's thousands of dollars per vehicle.
Well, and it's so interesting that you brought up the reconditioning piece, because that has been, historically, that's a challenge when it comes to used cars or pre-owned cars, and putting it through the processes, getting it back in, frontline ready. We know every minute of that entire process counts. So, what are they doing next, in your opinion? I mean, what are the pieces that, in that reconditioning process that are being successful?
So a few things that they're doing is, they're scanning vehicles with an OBD, and they're a lot more thorough on the inspection when they're actually going to pick up the vehicles than they were in years past. I think there was a lot more margin of error that they've been able to get operationally a lot more disciplined. I think a lot of dealers, myself included, used to say, well, yeah, but they're not inspecting it fully. And then when it gets back, there's a bunch of surprises. And, you got to hand it to them. They have improved their processes. They've gotten a lot more efficient, but they're also assessing the dollar amount of those repairs a lot more, because these days, even you go back 4 or 5 years ago, a windshield might be $700 or maybe $1,000, depending on the vehicle. But now with all the technology and the, monitoring your eyes to see if you're paying attention to the road, blind spot monitor, heads up display, it's not unusual for a windshield to be $3,700 and have to be recalibrated and or tires, for instance. So a lot of dealers I see are missing the boat. They set up a default, let's say $2,500 in recon, and let's say you've got a 0 to 3 year old car. It forces you to underappraise those cars because you're overestimating the recon, playing it safe. Whereas they're just using the exact number because they've got great data and they're being accurate about it. Conversely, let's say you account for a windshield at $700, and then tires, you say that, they're $200 on average. Well, it's $200 for a Corolla or a Camry, but it's not $200 for a, Camaro SS or a Corvette or, Ford GT500. You're talking, $500-600 a tire. So plus an alignment. And so you can very easily 22-inch wheels on an Escalade versus 18-inch wheels. There's that difference alone between windshield and tires. If you have that combo, you could be off $3,000, which in many cases is more than the markup on a car. And then you have to wholesale the vehicle. So I think that using data science and predictive analytics to be able to, amplify and accelerate accuracy on appraisals, not only affects winning the trade and getting more cars through the shop, but it also makes it so that when it does arrive at the shop and the internal service advisor, the service manager is taking a look at it, you don't have used car managers saying, hey, I really need your help on this one because we're off $3,000 and I need you to discount your labor rate to nothing. And I need you to, we're going to have to cut out all your parts margin when the service department didn't do anything wrong. And they're like, I'm just trying to keep a car. You're keeping me from putting car deals together. And we could just go back and measure twice and cut once, I guess, is the moral of the story.
Well, and I'm glad you also mentioned the real-time data, because that is a big component that I know you have been a champion of with Accu-Trade and Cars Commerce. So talk to us a little bit, how important is it in this entire transaction? It sounds like Carvana's, they're really dialing in some of these pieces with the data, but how does a dealer look at their own data, and how do you reconcile that real-time market data?
So we're trying to enable, the dealer in rural Midwest America to be able to operate with the same scale and efficiency as a CarMax or a Carvana or you name the other publicly traded mega group, and give them the same technology. As we say at Cars Commerce, we want to arm the rebels to fight back against the empire, because the small rural dealers are at a disadvantage. They don't have the data. They don't have their own AI environments where they're analyzing this data to be able to make intelligent decisions and make them very quickly at scale by enabling and empowering their associates. Like, for instance, Accu-Trade, our technology, we consolidate all that. We aggregate all the repair data so that depending on the vehicle, if it's a Lamborghini, whatever, Aventador, we know that the bumper is going to be $2,700, whereas that same bumper might be $150 to repair on a Camry, or worst case scenario, it's $650 to replace it. And we know on each model year trim, if it has a certain package on a Range Rover, we know what, if on a P615 big body Range Rover, we know that windshield is going to be like $4,700. And some people say, why are you deducting that much? Well, that's how much it is.
Mm-hmm.
And unless you know Range Rovers, and unless you're a JLR dealer, the odds are you probably, aren't aware of that and all the nuances. And there's nobody who is Rain Man that can sit there and memorize all those things. So you got to leverage technology. If not, you got to slow down, check, look it up, copy and paste, and go, move in slow motion. And there's no need for dealers to do that anymore. And that's what we're trying to do at Cars Commerce, is we're trying to simplify everything about selling and, acquiring vehicles and then servicing vehicles, so that people don't have to stop what they're doing. We're just trying to make the data more readily available to them.
So I'm sure a lot of dealers listening today, we're gearing up for 2025. It's right around the corner. Thanksgiving's coming up, and a lot of dealers are sitting there looking at their inventory and thinking about, okay, I've got units that are sitting a little bit longer than they have been in previous years. I really need to improve my service business and figure out some ways that I can turn my service department into a better profit center. But, in your opinion, what should dealers be looking at next this year? There's a lot of variables at play, and there's a lot of best practices that they could be utilizing.
So what we see overall as an industry is, going into 2025, and this is down from maybe, 17 million available vehicles. So we look at 0 to 5 year old vehicles coming back into the market. What's the total available market or addressable market that's going to, everybody gets to choose the pool of which everybody gets to acquire vehicles from. And going into next year, it's estimated to be 12.6 million. Now, that's not the SAR, the seasonally adjusted annualized rate. That's how many, based on the replacement velocity, how many people that own a car that's a 2020 to a 2025, which we obviously know they produced a lot less, how many of those are going to come back into the market? And at 12.6 million, which has been, it's been scarily accurate. You've got CarMax that's going to acquire about 1.2 million cars. You've got Carvana now tracking, I think, 700,000 cars. So you can kind of wipe 2 million right out of the gate, because they are already laser focused. So that means for 40,000 dealers, there's 10 million cars left to pick over. So if you're going after the same old strategies, and you're not innovating and you're not reinventing yourself, then you're going to be held hostage. And what's going to happen is the price is going to be crazy high. The market's going to dictate whatever it's going to sell for. And that margin compression is just going to keep on tightening up. And the most viable solution are two things: sight unseen appraisals on internet leads and, street purchases direct from consumer acquisition. But the lower hanging fruit, I would say, are the 80 to 100 ROs that are coming through every service department every single day, which to me is like an auction lane where you can just put, competitive bids on cars, not trying to lowball them and not trying to steal trades, but aggressively trying to pursue them. Just like, every dealer does at the auction, and they pay all the money at the auction. My recommendation is you pay a little bit less and just put your best foot forward on every car coming through service, and play the law of averages. And, on 1,000 ROs a month, we see that, a top performing store will appraise 15 to 18% of those vehicles. So let's say it's 150 to 180. Of those 150, let's say 20% of those will convert, and they'll end up selling another vehicle to them 85% of the time. So 1,000, 150 times what 20% is going to be 30 units acquired, and then 85% of the 30 will buy another vehicle. And there's no cost of advertising. You get to keep all the internal money. But not everybody wants to dedicate the resources, assign somebody to it. Somebody's got to be held accountable to it, and somebody's got to be responsible for those KPIs.
Well, the other piece too, in thinking about it, one of those important elements of putting your best foot forward in the service lane and having all of those opportunities in a daily basis. How does a dealer really, we've talked about, and you and I were both at Northwood University, and we heard all of this message around hospitality. That was really the overarching theme, I think, that lots of different, incredible dealers were talking about, as that's going to be the differentiator. How does this really up the hospitality piece for the customer? Are there pieces of this entire process that a dealer can be looking at to, better improve the customer experience?
Okay, so that's a great question. I would look at it on a multi-pronged approach, right? So I think that the people that you need to attract for this type of role in the service department is not typically who you might have had in the past. It's more of an altruistic profile, and somebody who's really customer centric and is really genuinely trying to help customers out when they're coming through the service drive. And what we recommend is, walking up to customers, letting them know there's a shortage of those vehicles in the used car lot, and ask them if you paid above market value, which we are anyway, would they consider selling it? And and this is a very important part, if they say, no, I'm not interested, no problem. Here's my business card. Whenever you change your mind or get back into the market, make sure you call me first. No pressure, no anything like that. And if they say, well, how much? Then they also need to be enabled, and you got to trust them to be able to do the first 80% of the appraisal right there in the moment. Because if you then sit them down, pull out a whole stack of papers, and here, we're just going to go this, I need your driver's license, they're going to say, yeah, this is going to be too much. So it's got to be simple. It's got to be frictionless. That is hospitality. And another great example to tie it back to what we started this conversation out with, Cavanaugh, they master the law of reciprocity. All they started off advertising was, we're going to give you an exact number for the car, and we're going to honor it when we come out to you. Then we're going to now inspect the vehicle, but there's not going to be any gamesmanship or anything like that. Whatever it said we were going to do, we're going to actually do. And I think that's why they've got a lot of street cred. But that's nothing that all franchise dealers can't do the exact same thing on, by extending that law of reciprocity, because customers would rather deal with the dealership than to go to CarMax or Carvana. That's an extra step. And most importantly, we see, especially working on a pilot with some Southeast Toyota dealers, where we're seeing massive gains in their dealer retention percentage, because they're working their existing customer base. So the customer, they're closing out the RO in the customer's name that they're in for service on. Now you're actually getting another vehicle it's a unit in operation. So it's kind of a double-pronged approach, and you're making sure that that customer's not going to buying a Tesla or some other conquest brand.
And speaking of Teslas, thinking about the EV picture too, just kind of final thoughts on that. A lot of dealerships are thinking about the acquisition pieces as it comes to EV vehicles, and now as more of those are in the marketplace in some areas, that pre-owned, or that the value on an EV vehicle sometimes scares dealerships away from putting a bid on a trade-in or thinking about it. So how does a dealer look at the EVs and the pre-owned EVs that are coming into the marketplace?
Yeah, that's probably the other hottest topic going around now. So, I'll go to sometimes within the same dealer group, and one dealer is selling 60, 80, 100 used EVs, and their sister store across the street is selling 5. And you try to figure out what's the difference between the two. And I think that there's a certain level of business acumen. You have to be familiar with EVs. You have to somewhat understand the market, how people, what's Elon Musk doing, because he's so unpredictable. Like Cybertrucks, they just lost $20,000, and I think a lot of dealers on Model Ys and Model S's have been burnt, and they don't even want to go back into that, touch that stove again. Which is why Accu-Trade guarantees those values. And when that foundation package came off the Cybertruck recently, our prices were updated within 60 minutes to keep our dealers safe, and we're guaranteeing that, and we're backing them up at the same time. So that margin of error should be pretty tight, but under $25,000 EVs are scalding hot right now, especially if it's $21,000 or less, because you get the $4,000 tax rebate on used EVs. But you've got to know, you got to merchandise it correctly on your website. You got to know how to clarify it. You got to know what qualifies. You got to make sure that it's not a used car that somebody already redeemed that credit on. So there are some nuances to it, but I'll give you the best analogy. I was just in Salt Lake City, and I left the independent dealer called EV1 or EV Auto, Alex Lawrence's dealership out there, and they sell, I think they're the #1 used EV dealer in the country. And as I got picked up by my Uber from there to head back to the hotel before I went to the airport, I'm sitting there talking to the Uber driver, and he's driving a Tesla Model S. And he goes, so what's up with that place? And I said, it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest EV dealer in the country, used. And I said, what's interesting is, I said, I don't know where you bought this vehicle from, but there's a lot of franchise dealers that people will come in looking at a Camry or something, and they can't get there on payment right now because of affordability, interest rates. But they'll say, hey, I can get you a 1-year newer Tesla Model S with less miles, more equipment. Have you considered doing that? And he said, that's exactly how I've got this. I went to go get a Camry hybrid, and I couldn't get there payment wise. I was going to leave, and they said, well, would you consider an EV? And he goes, no, I love it, but I wouldn't. It's not what I went there to see. And on cars.com, we see 8% of the searches are for EVs, but 12% of the removed inventory is an EV, which means that that's happening, probably 4% of the time.
So much great information, Brian. And I know we can have so many different conversations going on. And I'm excited to have you back, for our next show as well, because I would love to hear, as the market continues to update and as these pieces with Carvana continue to take shape. It's always a pleasure to have you on the roundtable and hear your perspectives.
No, I always love ping-ponging back and forth with you.
Well, and Brian, if a dealer wants to learn a little bit more about how they can get started with Accu-Trade and Cars Commerce, what are the next steps?
They can get on www.carscommerce.inc, INC. They can get on Accu-Trade.com. That's ACCU-trade.com. They can track me down on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok under Brian Kramer or Kramer Brian. And or you can email me at bkramer@cars.com.
Perfect. Well, Brian, thank you for being on today. On behalf of TechVengers, everyone, this is Brian Kramer of Cars Commerce and Accu-Trade with us today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable. Stay tuned. We've got some incredible segments coming up next.
I'm out here today appraising and buying cars from total strangers using just 2 things, our Accu-Trade mobile app and our Bluetooth OBD2 scanner. That's all we need in order to give them a 100% instant offer guaranteed by Accu-Trade. So let's tell Maeve what her vehicle is worth and what we're willing to write you a check for.
Let's do it. No way!
Right?
No! I might want my check.
Oh, we can. That's all it takes.
We want to make it so that every automotive dealer can use AI natively and effectively to enhance the abilities of your employees to do their job. When we look at the ROI, one of the things that we know is that if you can communicate to a customer on a missed phone call in 15 minutes or less, that drives up profitability and customer satisfaction. So not only does our AI engage that customer on a missed phone call, it also creates a workflow for the employees to get back to the customers with predictive intelligence about what they need to provide to the customer to handle the situation as it arises.
Who doesn't love a game of college football? Up next, we have the Northwood University student panel.
Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. We are coming to you live from Northwood University. I'm Vanessa Collins, joined by Katrina Ness, and we are here with some amazing Northwood students.
This is so exciting that we get to do another panel with our peers. So going down the line, starting with Dylan, if you guys would like to say your name and then introduce yourself, where you're from, and your year and a little bit about you.
So I'm Dylan Markovich. I'm from Holland, Michigan. I'm an automotive marketing and management major, and my family owns a dealership.
Wonderful.
All right. Hello, my name is Brooke Engelhardt. I've been on a panel a few times now, but always a pleasure to be here. I am actually, for this weekend here, we are at Northwood University and we have our auto show. So I am our Chief Marketing Officer of the 61st NUIAS, and I am from Saline, Michigan.
Wonderful.
Awesome. My name is Andrew Bogle. I am a marketing communications major. I'm a sophomore here at Northwood. I do a little bit of everything. I love sports, and I love the auto show in general. Just here to have a good time.
Wonderful. Awesome. So starting with you, Andrew, and working our way down, what has your Northwood experience been like so far, both inside and outside of the classroom?
The Northwood experience for me has been amazing. Inside the classroom, I've got to meet a lot of professors that have taught me a lot of experiential learning things. So along the lines of that, I would say just understanding in the field what it's like to learn about like managing a business, being able to go through the operations day to day of what it's like to be in the field. And then also out of the classroom, I've had a lot of volunteer opportunities here. So being able to see prospective students coming in, but also being able to work in the field of like sports and auto are two of the biggest things, at least for me, that I've got to learn. So yeah.
Yeah, kind of jumping off of what you said, Andrew, the thought of being able to have so many volunteer experiences at Northwood, I feel like that is a huge part of the Northwood experience. Whether it's our Go Mad Day or Go Make a Difference Day, where we go out in our Midland community and help one another, whether it's helping out the auto show, being true student volunteers for this amazing event that is put on is phenomenal. And it's a student-led event, so just knowing that all students are volunteering for this phenomenal, well-put-on event, it's truly wonderful.
Yeah, and then going off what Brooke said, just getting to volunteer, and a big part of that is meeting all the people that we get to meet. That's something I really like, because we always talk about here at Northwood connections, so it's great getting to meet all these people, get those connections to prepare us for the real world.
Yeah, so you guys are some exemplary students at Northwood University. And you seem like you guys would have your pick of any school in the world. So why Northwood out of every college you could have gone to?
I picked Northwood specifically for the automotive program. Like I said, my family owns a dealership, and when I said I wanted to do automotive, my dad was like, Northwood's the place to go.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely had my pick of schools as well, and Northwood was by far the winner. When I was in high school, I actually had taken a bus trip up to Northwood, and while I was on that bus trip, as soon as I stepped off of the bus, it just felt like home, and that was such a secure feeling about Northwood. So I am very grateful that I've chosen Northwood, and because of that, I have met all of these lovely people beside me, and I'm just so grateful for the opportunities that have been revealed to me and that I've taken a chance and hopped on for.
Awesome. I would like to say the multitude of opportunities that have been, I guess, posted to me in a way that it's like, okay, here we have opportunities for you in and out of the classroom, and there's lots of other things on top of it, like the auto show, like we have a fashion show here. So just many, many things that kind of like added up on top of it, and also the amazing people. Everybody here is so nice and hospitable, and it's like, okay, they really care about us here. Why don't I want to be a part of that? You know what I mean? Instead of being a statistic. So that's why I chose Northwood.
As Northwood students, we all know Northwood's guiding philosophy. So let's talk about that for a second. The Northwood idea, which values freedom, personal responsibility, and free enterprise. So what does the Northwood idea mean to you? And starting again with Andrew, working our way down.
I would like to say that the Northwood idea, to me at least, it means a lot, one, because personal responsibility is something that I struggled with in high school, relying on other people, but pretty much Northwood has just built me up in a way that it's like, okay, I can run this ship by myself, and I can also have resources from the people around me. But at the same time, with the free enterprise thing, it's like, okay, here we can trade anything we want. We have the allowances and freedoms of being able to talk to many other people. So that's pretty much what the Northwood idea means to me.
Awesome. Lovely. Well, at this moment in time, I am actually the Fresh Air Ambassador of Northwood University. So while that also ties into the Northwood idea, it also ties in with Northwood's Code of Ethics, which is Fresh Air. And I'm very honored to be able to hold this position alongside of our other Fresh Air Ambassador. But most importantly, I feel that the Northwood idea means to truthfully just be that Northwood student, be that student who is willing to do whatever it takes to make things happen at this university, things in such an incredibly positive way, whether that's being involved in the student-led events, whether that's being involved in our RSOs, our registered student organizations. I think that there's a number of ways that students can get involved at Northwood, and I feel like that best represents the Northwood idea.
To me, the Northwood idea of like free business really means like showing us what business should be like when we actually go out into the world, and how we should run our own businesses, and how we should work at the businesses that we end up going to. So free business and being able to do what you want.
I agree. So Northwood's mission is to develop future leaders. How are you going to take what you're learning at Northwood and put that behind you, or use that to help you build a foundation for your career in the future?
Yeah, I think everything you learn at Northwood is really important to your career. From everything we learn in the classroom, because most of our professors come from industry, so they have a lot of valuable resources, people they know, valuable tips. All that kind of stuff really builds over time, and you learn what the real world is really like before you even leave and get out there while you're still at Northwood.
Yeah, definitely. This actually makes me want to bring up a story about LG Bright, the automotive professor here at Northwood University. LG has been nothing but an incredible person, an incredible mentor, and an incredible professor for myself as well as my peers. But he's always reminded me and taught me that it is so important to be yourself. And I think that taking that from Northwood and from LG himself and moving forward with that after Northwood, I think it's a great reminder for ourselves to just know that being yourself is whatever that means to you, whether that's being comfortable, whether that's being professional, whatever that stands for yourself. I think that's so important to remind each of our own individual selves, and I'm grateful for LG for sharing that. But, yeah.
I completely agree. I'm just going to piggyback off of that. Personally, I'm not an automotive major, but LG is a great guy. He's taught me a lot of things about individualism, but also building yourself up through the experiences that you want to, I guess, go for, right? Let's say you want experience in the auto show. Let's say you want experience in sports. Let's say you want experience in pretty much anything. People at Northwood are willing and allowing to help you find those things, and just being able to build up your identity in whatever you want it to be.
Wonderful. All right, well, this panel was amazing to have, and on behalf of my peers and Northwood University, we thank you all for tuning in. Vanessa and I are inviting you to stay tuned and watch the rest.
American colleges are bulging at the seams today as hundreds of thousands of young people try to get college training to qualify them for jobs. The competition is intense. What makes Northwood different from other colleges?
Northwood is particularly different because of its approach to the business world.
analyze the current trends in automotive retail with our next panel filmed at Northwood University.
Welcome to Northwood University. This morning we are at the International Auto Show here at America's University, and our first panel, kicking things off, Teddings, who do we have with us today?
Great honor to be here at Northwood, and I'd like each of the panelists to introduce themselves. We'll pass the microphone, and we'll start with this gentleman right here.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Steve Park. I'm from NADA, based out of the NADA headquarters in Tysons, Virginia. I'm the Senior Vice President of Dealership Operations, and in that department, I'm responsible for all things education, training, consulting, in dealership consulting. I think the two programs that the industry is most familiar with is the NADA and the ATD Academy, as well as 20 groups. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Cavanaugh. I'm a Vice President at Lithia and Driveway. I oversee a lot of the stores here in the middle of the country for Lithia. I'm a Northwood grad, bachelor and MBA, so proud Northwood grad. Happy to be back here and looking forward to the conversation.
Good morning. My name is Bob Kron. I'm the president and COO of the Rydell Company. We're a group of about 100 rooftops across 18 states, and I'm based out of Minneapolis. Excited to be here, and big fan of Northwood University.
I'm Brian Benstock from Paragon Honda and Paragon Acura in Queens, New York. White Plains Honda too. I sell Hondas. We sell lots of Hondas, and we service Hondas, and I'm really excited to be here.
Gentlemen, thank you for being on this panel today. To kick things off, Brian, I'll come to you with the first question. There's a lot of key challenges the industry is facing right now. What is your perspective on what dealers need to be paying attention to?
Well, I think you've got to lean into innovation. I think you've got to lean into what's happening in the inevitable. You know, what you know in advance, prepare for in advance. And the BEV revolution is not going anywhere. And I think a lot of us dealers have been pushing back on BEV. I think it's time that we embrace BEV and the technology. The technology is exploding at unprecedented levels. AI is no longer a buzzword. It's in everything that we do. And I think the more that we can embrace that, the more that we can be a part of the evolution instead of being looked over. And we've got competition coming from China, unprecedented competition coming from China. And we've got to be aware of that. There are over 200 auto manufacturers looking to come into our business. So I think that those are some of the concerns that I have.
Steve, if I may ask you the same question. Key challenges.
I think given my swim lane and training and education, I think one of the challenges, which is also an opportunity, I think, for this industry, and hopefully it resonates with the audience here, is human capital management. And what I mean by that is, the next generation, the Gen Zs, and how they can acclimate to a corporate culture within retail automotive, as an example. As we all know, there's a lot of consolidation that's been going on in the car segment. And with that, small auto groups have now become medium size have now become large. And in essence, some of these organizations are operating like corporations. And so when the next generation millennials and Gen Zs are entering the workforce, they want to know more about career development, professional development. Where do I go from here? It's not so much about the pay plan as what it was 20 or 30 years ago, right? And so how does our industry adapt to that and embrace this next generation?
And Steve, one of those larger groups is Lithia. I'm curious Mike Kavanaugh's perspective.
Sure. So I'd say one of the unique challenges that we've got in the industry right now, particularly on the retail side of the industry, is embracing our role in kind of the hospitality business. I think we don't realize sometimes that this is a hospitality business that we're in, whether we're on the retail side and we're selling cars and selling F&I products to customers, or whether we're on the service side and we're actually taking care of customers. But our primary role, I think, and we've got some great manufacturer partners that are represented in the room here as well, that I think we've learned a lot from in terms of our important role when it comes to retaining customers and keeping customers happy, is we have to embrace that piece with hospitality and really care for our customers, love our customers. If we want to see continued growth in the industry, and we want to see people continue to stay with the brands that we represent, we have to do an excellent job as the face to the customers. So I think that's the biggest challenge, is we have to continue to not only train on hospitality, but hire people that actually care about customers, that love customers, that want to care for people, not just, love cars or want to service cars, but they actually care about customers.
Bob, what would you say are the key challenges the industry is facing now from your perspective?
When I look at a question like this, I start internally and look at our company and look at myself and say, what can I control and what can we control that we can have an impact? And I think there's a lot going on right now with the businesses that we have to protect our businesses and work really hard on protecting our assets and our people. And there's a lot of vulnerabilities right now in the market with cyber attacks, with some sensitive information that we hold as automotive dealership, and we have to be really diligent in making sure we're protecting our assets and protecting our people, and so that's a big thing on our mind right now. But from a business side, I look at as a personal service agreement with the manufacturers that our job is to represent the brands, and when I think of that, the last couple of years were easier. And we were able to sell everything we had, and they went quickly. And when we look at our execution plan, we have a strategy we believe in, we have an operational plan, and we have people. And right now, I hear people saying we have process evaporation in our stores. We're not repricing our cars like we should. We're not doing multi-point inspections. People are just not doing the things we need to do. We've developed some bad habits over the last couple of years. And I'd challenge people in our group to say it's not process evaporation, it's leadership evaporation. And when you look at the idea of holding people accountable, I don't agree with holding people accountable. I agree with helping people succeed. So we're really challenging our leaders right now to say, what are you doing as a leader? And how are you creating an experience for your people on your team that's going to create belief, so then the score kind of takes care of itself and they take the action they need. And we need to look in the mirror as leaders right now and say, how are we leading our people and how are we helping them succeed?
Brian, do you want to follow up on that?
Well, I like what Mr. Cavanaugh said, and I like what the gentleman next to me said. I think we are in the hospitality business, and it's such a great understanding. No wonder why he's so successful. The customers are not comparing their experience that they have at our dealership versus another dealership. They're comparing our experience with every other experience they've had wherever they go. So we've got the competition is an Amazon experience. It's what happens at Apple and Google, not just how we did compared to the dealership across the street. And I think the other part that you made, and I completely agree with, there's a lack of leadership. There's a lack of leadership at the top right now in the country, and I'm not getting political. There's a lack of leadership in business today, and there's a lack of leadership in our industry. It's been easy, and you could get away with things, and that causes decay, and that causes bad, sloppy habits. We're getting now back to those fundamentals of blocking and tackling and taking care of our clients. And I think that's, we've tried to stay on tune with them. My guys were saying, why are you so stressed all the time? And really pressing them every day. And the store was doing great numbers, but I kept leaning into them because this is not normal. I'm telling you, this past 2-3 years is not normal, and it's going to normalize. And how many people just got in the industry 2-3 years ago, and they don't know what normal is? And so that's been the challenge for us. And training and leadership are key. And Mr. Cavanaugh said something before. He said getting a general manager, the right manager in the store, takes care of a lot of the problems with the store. And I completely agree with that, because that's nothing less than leadership.
You've got some great retailers on this panel. We're very fortunate today. New York, Queens, New York, Westchester, New York. You've got Mike Cavanaugh from Lithia, and you've got Bob from Rydell in the middle of the country. So, and of course NADA. I want to capture all of your perspective. Brian, key opportunities the industry faces. I've never known you to shy away from an opportunity, and I've seen you look at things as opportunities. I recall maybe 4 or 5 years ago, you mentioned now the Amazon experience, but bringing the car to the customer for service, okay? That was out of the box thinking, great timing. I don't think anybody realized that. You were way ahead of your time in doing that. But what are you seeing now in terms of key opportunities that we as an industry face?
Doubling down on convenience for the customers, doubling down on using technology outside of the industry, looking to the Googles, looking to the Amazons for solutions. I think when we look at each other for solutions, you get incremental growth, but when you look outside the industry and look at what the big aggregators are doing, you can get exponential growth. Ted, since we started the pickup and delivery in 2017, we've picked up over 200,000 customer cars for service, serviced the cars and put them back in their driveways, generating over $60 million in gross without the need for the customer to come to the store. And so we happen to get the timing right before COVID, but now it's time to lean into that.
Mike Cavanaugh, let me follow up with you. Key opportunities right now the industry is facing.
So key opportunities the industry is facing, I think there's probably an unlimited amount of opportunities right now that our industry has as a whole. One thing that we put a lot of focus on is consumer optionality, and that kind of piggybacks on what Brian was just speaking to as well too. And I've followed Brian for a long time, and I've learned a lot from him just following him on LinkedIn. So I would say, for any of the students in the room or anybody watching as well too, when it comes to innovation and taking advantage of opportunities, Brian is an excellent person to follow that I've learned a ton from. But mobile service is another one that I think is a huge opportunity. We've got a lot of Ford stores across the country, a lot of Ford stores here locally in Michigan as well too. And pickup and delivery is a great option, but mobile service, we've seen rapid growth across our stores with mobile service as well. And it goes back to that consumer optionality or that customer convenience. So I think whether you're leaning into doing remote deliveries with customers and delivering cars on the sales side to them at their home, or whether you're doing mobile service in their driveway or pickup and delivery, one size does not fit all. And I think sometimes when we lean in too much to one thing, we maybe can push away some customers, but we've got to give customers options. We've got a platform called Driveway, which is something that I launched early on in my career here at Lithia. And, we sell cars to customers in every state. We've shipped cars to customers in Hawaii, Alaska, everywhere. But it's a section of customers that's growing over time, that they're okay to purchase a car sight unseen and have it delivered to their home if they have some kind of option to return it. But we still see the overwhelming majority of customers that want to come into a dealership and they want to look at a car, they want to test drive a car, they want to have a great experience, they want to talk to somebody that they can trust. So I think from an opportunity perspective, we have to really look at it and say there is no one size fits all for customers, but we have to, constantly be experimenting. Again, that's something that I think I learned from Brian through the years as well, is just try things, experiment. You may not get it right the first time, but you've got to continue to try to experiment, listen to your customers. I get every single review from all of our customers at every one of my stores, especially the ones that are 3 stars and below, to learn where we failed our customers. And I think you can learn a lot and find the opportunities if you actually listen to your customer, right? We can come up with great, brain trust within our own organizations and think about what we think the customer wants. But if you listen, it's obvious where the opportunities are, and you just have to capitalize on them.
Up front, that might not. Maybe for start.
This question is again, I think it goes back to leadership and the ability of our leaders to have the reputation of attracting and developing and retaining talent and being a champion for their lifelong learning. I don't know if there's a better industry for a person to grow and be a business leader and make a difference in a community. So we work hard on attracting talent, and we got to be better at it, because it took me 14 years to come to this industry because I didn't want to. I didn't think it was a place to be. And now I wish I would have started it right out of college, because it's the most dynamic, exciting business that I think a human being can be in. It's one of the largest industries in the world. So attracting talent and developing them and retaining them and exceeding their expectations for life is one of our priorities. The other part that we're really focused on, a big opportunity, is, we know the variable market, the new car market's going to be up and down, and it's only been up and down forever. So I think the market is strong, and the market is up and it's down, and we just got to maximize the new car opportunity. But the real opportunity is with fixed operations and used cars. And we used to have on our plans to hire more technicians, and we always complained about how hard it was to hire technicians. And we asked a simple question in 2018, we said, is your shop full? And it was a real scientific study. We walked through the shop in all of our stores at 4 o'clock. And we realized we had over 20% more capacity with the technicians that we had. And the challenge that we had was not around process or our strategy, but the problem we had was we created our own silos in our business. We have report cards for every one of our stores, and we had a report card for the parts department, a report card for the service department, a report card for the body shop, report cards for the BDC. And we built walls around each one of these businesses. And when we started this project, we realized with the extra capacity we had, and we were turning customers away at 3 o'clock. We didn't want to do carryovers. we had plenty of opportunity, and what we broke down was the silos. And it took us about a year in our stores to create what we called shared belief. And we had shared goals, and we got everybody thinking the same way. And we had the bottlenecks in the wrong spot. So it took a lot of work, and instead of just telling people what to do, we had to create belief. And the opportunity was to get people to believe in what they did, and the results are very impressive, and it's recession-proof in our business right now.
Steve, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I just want to touch on real quickly that I know it was mentioned earlier about BEVs and the EV industry. I think that is an opportunity, and what I'm sharing is not only what we talk about back at NADA, but it's what we're hearing from our NADA membership through our academy and our 20 group dealers, and they really feel that it's time. It's really time to lean into BEVs. It starts with your people. It starts with training, not just in the front end with your salespeople, but throughout the dealership. Matter of fact, I know there's a Chevy dealer in town here who's actually trained all their dealers. Yes, adoption has been slow. Yes, infrastructure development has been slow, but it is coming, number one. And number two, the average price point of a BEV has been somewhere in the neighborhood of $65,000. Well, that's starting to drop over time. As a matter of fact, if you look at a Chevy Equinox, I think the last time I checked, they sold 30,000 units at around a $40,000 or just under a $40,000 price point.
$99 a month.
There you go. So my point is, in this industry, it is important to be opportunistic. And yes, the supply was far ahead of the demand, but just with the EPA and the de facto mandate, which is in place right now, to be at 26% BEV by 27 and 56% by 32. And those are very aggressive and unrealistic numbers. But directionally, I think this country is going to be headed that way regardless of our administration.
We've talked about the challenges, the opportunities, and now want to pivot a little bit into the outlook. EVs. Brian, how should dealers be preparing right now?
Again, what you know in advance, you have to prepare for in advance. I was at the Honda plant in Marysville last week, and there's no question about it. They are committed. They're all in. There's a couple of $1 billion worth of manufacturing that's been set up. And so the responsibility is the dealers. Are we going to be a part of the process, or are we going to be an impediment? And I think a lot of the concern from government administrations is that the dealers are not on board. We are in Queens, New York. We are in a metro area where there's no place to plug the cars. And I was concerned, how is Paragon going to be able to continue its leadership position? And what we did is we trained everybody in the store on the opportunity for BEVs, so that it's coming, you can't avoid it. And I'm proud to say Paragon is the #1 selling EV Honda dealership in the nation. And I say that not because bragging about us being number. It is a very difficult market to be able to sell EVs because there's no place to plug the cars, but there is a demand there. So again, I think someone said, regardless of the administration, it's coming, and I think we need to prepare for that. And the best thing you can do is social proof. Get your people driving BEVs. Get the people that sell BEVs to drive a BEV. Because how are you going to tell me about a BEV if you've never experienced it yourself? And I think that's really been one of the keys to success for us. I never thought I'd be talking about BEVs.
Mike, your perspective, what outlook and what dealers should be preparing for?
Definitely a hot topic over the last, probably year or two. We have a privilege to represent, I think, every brand that makes an EV. And we took a step back a couple years ago and thought, how can we be an industry leader here? And we started with, we've got a website called greencars.com. If you've never visited it before, take a look at it. We've got about 16,500 EVs, PHEVs, hybrids on the website, and really made it an educational resource for customers as well too. So I think to kind of build off of what Brian was saying, you have to get your team holistically to be educated on EVs. They need to drive them. We had a big event here recently where we took our Green Cars team and brought them in with all of our stores locally here in Michigan, and had them drive almost every EV you can drive, up and including to a a Rolls-Royce Spectre, to really understand that there's all kinds of EVs that fit different people's needs. And I think there really isn't an option but to embrace this. And you can either be a leader or you can be a laggard. And I think if you decide to be a leader in EVs right now, you can get ahead of the game and you can become known as the place that does specialize in EVs. And again, even if there's a little bit of a slower growth than maybe what we would have projected originally, I think I would almost always rather be the expert than be somebody who's trying to, do this a little bit half-cocked. So I think you have to embrace it. You have to make it easy. I think a lot of our manufacturer partners are stepping up and they're starting to help make the process of getting a charger installed in someone's home easier. I think, a dealership has a big role in that as well, too, because there's only so many vendors that do that. But, to really understand what a customer's concerns are, it's not necessarily always range anxiety, but it has to do with, how easy is this thing to essentially refuel for us. And I was at a meeting a couple months back with the CEO of Ford, and he really painted a clear picture of, when automobiles started, dealerships had a role, and they had the role to, not only sell cars and service cars, but provide fuel as well. So in the early 1900s, dealerships also had fueling stations, right? So we're really not doing anything new when we start to, install the infrastructure to help provide charging for EVs as well. But I think there's a lot of roles that we in the retail side have to play. We just have to embrace that and truly become experts, because that's our job.
Bob, what would you say is your outlook and how dealers should be preparing for EV?
Well, we're excited to continue to create a great experience for customers. And when we're 100% behind with the manufacturers and what's important for our country. So there's no question about that. And we're making the necessary investments. I think the outlook is it's there, it's strong. I think the affordability issue is going to be addressed with better product coming out that's going to be attractive to all of our customers. So I think that's a big deal. Our facilities are ready. I think the thing that we really need to do, our outlook is dependent on how good our salespeople are and our sales managers and our service people at educating and being part of the solution in terms of talking about the options, because I think we have a ways to go there. And I think we have to be better prepared when a customer comes in and asks us key questions, because it's part of I think there's a learning curve still for a lot of people, and we have to take on that responsibility. So we're gonna continue to create a great experience with whatever the guest is asking for, and we're gonna support EVs. And I agree, we got to get people driving them. We got to get our salespeople driving them. We gotta be able to talk more about them and jump on that excitement, because they are. If you haven't driven one, they're pretty cool.
Can I just jump in? The shepherd's got to smell like the sheep, and we have to get our ownership driving the cars. I mean, I've got two. I need a BEV like I need a hole in the head, but to be able to talk about it, you've got to experience it.
Steve, what is your perspective from NADA, that EV outlook and how dealers should be preparing?
Well, I think it's kind of consistent with what all of us have said, and that is, you have to have firsthand experience with the vehicle. You have to not only think about the product, but also there's a fueling experience, and there's a lifestyle aspect of owning an EV as well. So, as salespeople in the showroom, it's not just about the fuel economy or the range. I think the range. There's talk about range anxiety, infrastructure anxiety. I mean, there's all kinds of anxieties that you can focus your attention on. But really is, how does an EV fit in your family and your family's driving habits and the family's lifestyle, right? And so instead of coming across as more of a product specialist, come across as more of a transportation coach, right? And try to see if an EV actually makes sense for that family.
Okay, gentlemen, our last question for the panel today. We are here at Northwood University in Midland, Michigan. If you had an opportunity to speak to the students who are attending, some will be graduating, some have just graduated, alumni is here as well, what would you say in terms of suggestions to people now entering the automotive industry for the first time, coming into the workforce, and in terms of the needs for those students? Brian, I want to come to you first on that.
I think the automobile industry is the best kept secret in business. I started out in 1982 for a summer job till something better came along. It's 42 years later. I think you've got what we're looking for in people. when we hire people is 3 I's, right? We're looking for intelligence, we're looking for integrity, and we're looking for intensity. And so lean into your education, keep your nose clean. Integrity is the bedrock, and then we're looking for intensity. I mean, you've got to be passionate about what you do, or don't do it. I think what we do is as important as what Michael Jordan did, or what any athlete does. And I think you should have that. I like to look for people that have that intensity, whether they're selling coffee at Starbucks or whether they're selling cars in Woodside, New York, that they have intensity and passion for what they do.
Brian, give us those 3 I's again. Intensity?
Intensity, intelligence, and integrity.
Okay, love it. Mike Kavanaugh.
I would keep it pretty simple. I would just say find something that you love to do every day. You're going to be passionate about it. You're going to want to continue to learn. I think, lifelong learning and continuing to want to, passionately pursue whatever that you really love is important. So, I mean, there's so many jobs in our industry, right? You don't have to be on the retail side. You don't have to be on the manufacturing side. You could be in the auto finance side. You could be in the technology side, the vendor side. There's so many different things to do in an industry if you love this industry, but do something that you love so you look forward to going to work every day. I'm really blessed because I feel like I look forward to going to work every single day. I love what I do. I almost feel guilty because I love my family, but sometimes I don't want to leave work because I love what I do so much. And I've never felt like it was a job or a grind or something I had to do. So I'd say look for something that you legitimately love doing every day, and you're going to be a happier person. You're going to enjoy life. You're going to be better at what you do, and then you'll make more money. But don't make a decision on this is what I'm going to get paid the most to do right out of college. And remember that, what you decide to do right out of college doesn't necessarily dictate what you do for the rest of your life. You can change jobs 4 or 5 different times and eventually find exactly what you want, but do what you love.
Steve?
I say my parting words would be, leadership and leadership titles are just titles. You can be a leader at any level within your organization, regardless of what role you are. Service advisor, parts manager, wash rack. I mean, it's all about attitude, and it's about knowing that you can be a leader and agent of change within your organization. So for all you upcoming graduates and students out there, it doesn't matter where you are in your life. If you have an opinion, don't be shy, speak up.
And Bob, bring us home.
I think it's natural when you're in college to think I have to get a job and I have to start paying off some bills and I need to go to work. And that's important. I really think of, when I talk to people starting out, you have to establish what I'd call a set. You need to develop skills, you need to develop experience, you need to work on your traits and develop your traits. And I think, especially the Northwood students here, you guys have a great experience, the men and women here, and you're getting a great experience, and life is all about experience and taking advantage of internships and listening to the people you get at these programs that Northwood offers. And so you really need to work on your experience. And I think that the real question is not what job you want, but you're not too young to start thinking about a dream. And instead of thinking what job do you want, you got to think about what kind of life you want to have. And so I like to ask the question, what's your dream? And a lot of times people don't know the answer, or what's your purpose? And next thing you know, you're going to be like me, 60 years old and a grandpa. But I've had a dream, and I feel like I'm living a dream in the automotive industry. And you got to align yourself with somebody who has values. That's why we're aligned with Northwood, because we have similar values. And you got to find somebody who's going to be a champion for your lifelong learning. You got to find someone who's going to do everything with honesty and integrity. You got to find somebody who's going to encourage you to make a difference and give you responsibility for something. And then you have to find somebody who's going to support your family. You have to find somebody who's going to give back to your community. And when you get those things, it doesn't really matter what you do. If you have a dream and you work towards that dream and work on having a great life.
Everybody, please give it up for this fine retail panel. We're at Northwood University, everybody. We're going to be coming right back.
We've never met, but we know you. You've got big plans for your career and your life.
Yes, I love it.
You're the overachiever, the go-getter with the entrepreneurial spirit.
This is such a cool idea. We could definitely.
You're also guided by this inner compass, your true north. Yeah, we know you. And maybe it's time for you to know us.
Welcome to Northwood University. I'm Sarah Vantine here with Ted Ings. Don Andres and Fred Fordin are with us. We have had an incredible day so far, and a lot of the conversation, Ted, has been centered around fixed operations.
And I'd like to get some feedback from our resident experts who have been here, taking it all in. This is just the first day on campus. We're going to be here tomorrow as well. Don Andres, let me come to you. What were some of the things and the takeaways that you got out of today's session in Northwood?
Oh, it's amazing, first of all, for an inaugural event like this to have such impactful panels. I mean, they were the leaders in the industry by all means, but it was interesting, whether it was Lithia, whether it was some of the other large groups, they all came back to this idea of fixed operations. They came back to this idea of saying, hey, things are going to go up and down with our industry. But boy, if we have consistent fixed operations, if we have engagement in fixed operations, we know that we can weather these. And so I love the idea of hospitality. There's no question that we have to engage with customers, I think is the only way we're really going to solidify that relationship. But I love how everybody still seems to come back to that very important fixed operations.
And Fred, this has got to put a smile on your face, being the creator many, many years back of ASR Pro and all the talk at Fixed today.
Yeah, it really did, Ted. When they mentioned hospitality, I laughed because, of course, I grew up in the service business and then grew up in the restaurant business. And those two, they go so well together. The best people I ever hired in my dealerships were waiters who already understood what it was to have to hustle with a customer and take care of that customer to make that tip, because they were living on, less than minimum wage. And when we brought those people into the industry, they shined and they really excelled. The speakers today were just so powerful. There's so much good information.
By the way, Fred, first time here at Northwood University?
This is my first time here. I missed the gathering back in June. Unfortunately, I got sick and couldn't come up, but I'm so impressed with this place. I really can't wait to come back.
And Don, I know you've been waiting to get up to Northwood for some time.
Oh my goodness, you grew up in the Detroit market and you see the dealers sending their kids up to Northwood. You knew all about Northwood, but yet I didn't make the trip up, and now I regret it because it's a beautiful campus, but I'm really excited about the car show. Really excited about what that's going to be all about. So yeah, first day, what a great first day.
I want to congratulate both of you gentlemen. First, Fred on Dealer Pro and the launch of that. So exciting things happening right now with Fred Fordin and in his life and business. So fantastic. And Don Andres, of course, on the new book, which is available on Amazon.com. Yeah. Give us the title again.
Why Auto Service Departments Fail to Grow. Yeah, available on Amazon. It's one of those projects that you work on for a while and it comes to fruition. So I'm very excited. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Two great names in fixed operations, everybody. Don Andres and Fred Fordin here with Sarah Vantine and I at Northwood University. Please stay with us. We have a lot more coming up. We'll be back.
We're passing the ball back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable Tailgate Touchdown event.
In automotive, we know that innovation drives us forward. The Fixed Ops Roundtable Certified Program is designed to help preferred dealers and partners with powerful tools, resources, and marketing to achieve even greater success. Ted Ings and I invite you to learn more today at fixedopsroundtablecertified.com.
The referees are on the field. It's the AutoMax TechVengers panel.
Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. Joe Lockard is with us. That means it's time for the AutoMax Recruiting TechVengers. They're all here and assembled. And Joe, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Yeah, thanks, Ted. Always a pleasure being here. And we got a new face with us tonight. Excited to get started.
This is a rock star panel, Joe. So, looking at the talent you've got assembled here, it's amazing. So I'll step out of the way. I know you got a great topic today, okay, for
Yes,
us.
sir.
So excited to hear about that. Joe, the show is all yours.
Thanks, Ted. All right, welcome everybody. And as usual, I like to go around the horn here, just do a quick introduction before we get into our topic. As I mentioned, we do have a new face tonight. It is Don Andres. Don, how are you?
Good. Thanks for the invite. And I've been watching this panel for a long time. It's the one to be on.
Yeah, I'm flattered, man. I hear we got a growing fan base out there. So thanks for joining. Don is a longtime fixed ops director in the industry. He's now owner and president of Auto SCT Consulting and Training. He just released a book, Why Auto Service Departments Fail to Grow. He's based out of beautiful Dublin, Ohio, one of my favorite places. So It sounds like you got a lot going on, my friend.
Yeah. It's a fun time to be in the business. Everything is the same, and yet everything's changing, right?
Yeah, well said. Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us again. I appreciate it. And hopefully we have you along for many years as we keep growing here. Next, I'm going to go to Shon Kingrey. What's up, Shon? How are you?
Nothing. Beautiful, sunny Madison, Wisconsin. Everything's great.
Beautiful.
Despite the fact you brought a Lions fan aboard, just Joe, I'd like to share that.
It's true.
There's a lot. I know there's a lot of NFC North heat going around in this room, man.
I'm not sure what Marco's got on up there either, but that's all right.
Yeah, I don't know about that randomly just picking up teams. I hope there's a story behind that jersey, Marco. We'll get to it.
I'm guessing Marco got that at a garage sale or something, but that's all right. We can keep going.
Shon, for anyone who doesn't know, is the VP of Fixed Operations for the Kaiser Automotive Group, and he's been with us from the start here, and always appreciate having you here, my friend.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Next, Robert Migliaccio, Service Director for CMA Valley, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram, Stanton, Virginia. How are you, my friend?
Doing well, Joe. Glad to be back. One of my favorite panels to be part of. So looking forward to our topic tonight and have some fun with it.
Absolutely, man. We're going to get going here. Next, I'm going to take it over to our automotive technician of the stars, Marco Zwanenburg. Marco is a, what do we say here? 25 years plus automotive technician, Marco?
Almost 30.
Almost 30 years.
Almost 30. 28 and counting.
He's currently at Naples Luxury Imports, and he's out there, man. He's blowing up on social media. He's doing big things, and I appreciate you gracing us with your presence every one of these.
Oh, absolutely. It's my pleasure to be on this panel and, see the same faces over and over. By the way, if you guys want to know, this came from the Kingrey residence moving sale. Okay. Let that be very clear. And no, the reason I got to be a Seahawks fan is when I moved to the U.S., because originally I'm from the Netherlands. When I moved to the U.S. in 97, I ended up in Seattle, Washington. So one of my first adventures with football was American sports, was seeing the Seahawks play at the original Kingdom. So I just stay true to them.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, as long as you're not just jumping on a bandwagon and there's a story and some roots behind it, I'm all for it. It's supposed to be an awesome fan base, too. I've never been to a game out there. But
absolutely. The 11th man.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us always. Appreciate it. And last, but never least, Tully Williams, Fixed Ops Director, Neo Company, Sacramento, California. How are you, Tully?
Fantastic. Looking forward to it. Without technicians, we can't sell any hours, can we? That's part of the fixed ops department.
That's right. That's right. All right. Let me, I'm going to jump in here, guys. Got a lot to talk about as always. And we try to keep the general focus of our panel recruiting / retention. And we've talked about a lot how they play off each other, right? I mean, the better you treat your techs, the more techs you're going to retain and the less you'll have to be recruiting. Plus, when it does come time to grow, it's easier to recruit techs when, they can speak on their own behalf and tell new techs what a great place it is to work, and just creating that environment and doing everything you can to both retain and recruit technicians. So with that in mind, we are going to kind of stick with that retention theme, and talk about another aspect that's going to allow you guys and other service directors, fixed ops directors all around the country to build that culture, build that environment where it is easy to both keep the techs you have and to bring on new technicians. So something that we've kind of spoken of a lot amongst us, and like I said, we've talked about so much. It can be challenging to come up with new topics relevant to recruiting and retention. But something that has come up several times here is the role of the multi-point inspection and video presentation in maximizing the earning power of technicians, their efficiency at work. So we're going to start there and kind of focus on that and get everyone's take and let everybody know, some best practices and how that ties into, again, recruiting and retention. Marco, I want to start with you. As much as possible, I like to get your opinion first. You're the voice of the people, the voice of the technician. And I know this is a topic that you feel really strongly about. So how important do you feel the role of the MPI video presentation is in making sure that the tech is happy and efficient?
For us #fixed up warriors, I think the MPI has multiple angles. First of all, it's a CYA. If I have it noted and I flag a tire as red, for example, the customer declines it, they take the car, they get in an accident, they can't come back to you. So use it as insurance. Second of all, it's a money maker, people. Come on, you look at this car anyways, and it may take you 1 or 2 times, go from hit it in yellow at 5 millimeters, hit it in yellow at 4 millimeters. The next time the car comes in, hit it in 3 in red at 3 millimeters. So you're building this rapport, you're building this constant vigilance with this customer. So you build trust with them. What does that do for a technician? You want to stay around for that customer to come back. And you keep making money over and over and over again. And that makes for a happy technician, like Tully will say, go home rich and tired. And that's what it's all about. Sell these hours and keep selling them. So in turn, now you got happy technicians, which that just glows outside the store, and people want to come in and work there. But we have to make sure that whether it's by mentoring, whether it's from the shop foreman or any other supporting issues, that you have to train technicians on doing the MPI, and especially when it comes to video and pictures, because that is so important. The technology that we have nowadays, seeing is believing. I can introduce myself personally to the customer of the car that I'm working on, and I can show them like, hey, here's an issue, but this is great. This is great. What can I do for you today? What can we take care of for you today?
Right. And you hit on a few things there. And we've talked about the importance of money, obviously. I mean, everyone wants to maximize their earning, and techs certainly have that right and are in a position right now to where they can maximize their earning. But the other side of that, like you said, is creating a solid work environment where you're not now held accountable for things that weren't your responsibility. But all that starts with training. And we've talked about the importance of training in regards to recruiting your retaining your technicians, and then allowing you to bring on the right type of person if you have to bring on an entry-level technician, and then molding them in your culture and in your processes. And this will certainly be a big part of that process to make sure you're starting them out the right way. Thanks, Marco. Don, I want to come to you next. So again, you're a new panel member, so I want to give you first crack at this. Plus, you're kind of bringing that outside voice like myself to where you're more on the vendor side now. So when you're working with your clients, how much of an emphasis do you put on the MPI and properly training technicians to conduct it?
Yeah, it's funny. And you've been calling on for years. You go into stores and you still see a lack of penetration on the actual MPI being done. And it's funny, you'll ask a simple question. I noticed you didn't do an MPI on this one. Well, it was just a simple recall, and I didn't need to put it on a hoist and things of that nature. And we used to always talk about recalls were a gift from heaven. These were customers that didn't necessarily come in at the normal routines, but now they're being forced to come in. And now you get this opportunity to wow them. You get this opportunity to do a once over on the car and really talk about things that we do here that they may not have been doing at their typical independent. So we think that's incredibly valuable. And so we talk about, why do you not do it? I ask that question more than anything else when I find a technician or a service manager maybe that's allowing that to happen. I'll say, let's talk about why they don't think it's important. And I say, well, I just scribble it on the back of the repair order, or I just put it in my notes and send it up there, and they're not going to sell it anyways, or, maybe this and that. And I said, there's one concept that I think you miss when you're not doing an MPI, and that is you're relying on a customer's memory. So you've interrupted them at work, that you talk about a couple things that they need on the car. They say, well, go ahead and do this, and I'm going to hold off on these right now for whatever reason. And I can guarantee you call that customer back an hour later and say, what were the two things you declined? They've gone back to their life. They've gone back to whatever's going on in their world. They don't remember. So what was the great value of the MPI? They get to take it with them. It's there on their phone. It's a receipt when they pick up the car. Whatever they currently might be doing with MPIs, you're not relying on their memory anymore. Now, in an active delivery, you can say, hey, these are the things we got done. These were the things that we still need to talk about, looping back in and getting done. And the end result is now they're bought in. They chose you to come to do business with you in most cases, and yet we're not giving them the value of this quality status of what's happening with their cars. So I think it's really important to ask that question of a technician that doesn't do it. Let's talk about why.
Right. Yeah. And so what you're really talking about is accountability, right? So where, you want to create the right work environment, but at the same time, if we're just kind of shooting from the hip and don't have a process in place, it creates these problems, and it creates that environment where you mentioned independent shops. One of the big challenges we have talking to an independent technician, trying to get them to make the move over to a dealership is, I don't want to deal with the drama. I don't want to deal with the service manager blaming me for stuff that should have been his responsibility. And it really should. I mean, that's where it should start. The training process, regardless of what they were doing before. Hey, I hear you. I understand that's how you did it before. Here's how we're going to do it, and here's why we're going to do it. And then you can have that accountability and, again, create that environment where they feel like their voice is heard, they feel like they're being treated fairly, and most importantly, they're maximizing their earning.
Yeah, I mean, it really just comes down to you want to understand why. And now let's face it, good leadership would never let that happen. Good management would say, this is the way we do business here. But I also want to convince that technician, you've invested all that time in shaking down the car, and then you're going to rely on their memory. No, we want to write that down. We want to have a quality MPI.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you, Don. Appreciate it. Shon, I want to come to you next. I'd love to get your take on it. I know you guys, obviously, you oversee a number of dealerships, and it's tough to kind of have quality control when you're spread out that way. What are some ways that you've used the MPI with your service directors to kind of maximize efficiency in your shops?
Well, for me, and get ready because Tully's going to jump out of the screen at me like he does every time we talk about this very subject. Don and I, when we were at Northwood together at one of Ted's pop-up events, we talked about this because, guys, out of my 8 stores, it's very obvious which stores are drinking the Kool-Aid and which stores aren't drinking the Kool-Aid, okay? I still have a Chevy store, I'm going to be very blunt, that does not, in the main shop, do MPIs. They do not do that. And to Don's point, it is a management issue, guys. It is what it is. They're a 61% express lane store. They do a great express lane business, and they do great MPIs on the express lane cars. When that car goes to the main shop, they don't do it. To the point where we had an X-Time rep here, literally today, by the way, who was out of her mind about the for anything lack of anything excuses, Joe, of why they don't do them. And it's a challenge to the point where Tully and I obviously talk offline a lot. guys, we have a great law in Wisconsin where I'm getting huge warranty incentives of $300 for rebates. Okay, we incentivize, we pay extra for warranty work because we can. I won't do it at those stores. That's the punishment, and they're still fighting the NPI process.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a challenge to the point where Don and I have texted a lot since Northwood. I'd love to have Don up at the stores to tour, but in the same token, you got to pick your battles, and that's a battle in some stores that you're still fighting, you're still not winning, and it's a struggle. To think that it's a very relevant topic today is an understatement, to be very honest, because we literally talked about it today. Where I have other stores, another GM store that runs a 98%, and by the way, they're up 61% year over year. Why? Because the management believes in it and the management forces it. And by the way, they're selling it. And by the way, RO counts down like it is across the country at that store, and they're up 60% because we're doing more with the vehicles that we have. You need a whole lot less, as Ross Karpinski said. Are you really short on techs, or is your shop full all day? Are you really short on work or RO count? Are you optimizing every opportunity you have? You got to ask, because it is a daily grind and a daily challenge.
So I'm interested. What I don't want to blow anybody up here, but hey, you brought it up. What are some of the excuses? I'm just curious as to why it's hey, we don't need to do this. This isn't important.
Because we're like Tully. We're a group that's been here 100 years as of next year. I know Tully's got to think me by a couple of years. And there's enough traffic because we've just sold enough cars. We have enough reputation that they're going to get their 10 to 12 hours a day without having to do it. We created our own nightmare. You're at stall utilization. They're turning their 8 to 10 hours a day. They're happy where they're at, and they're content with not doing it. And I hate to say it, we've conditioned the client not to expect it.
Yeah.
Almost to the point, well, because we're not selling it. Until I agree. I mean, you're not going to get an argument out of me. And we make more excuses, like the advisor that doesn't do it, the advisors that don't enforce it.
Yeah.
At what point? And then you have other stores, Joe, that in the same group who do it to the extreme the other direction.
Yeah. So it's kind of a combination of we're doing good enough, and then just kind of a path of least resistance where it's, well, I don't want to inconvenience the customer. I don't want to bring it up. So I'll just do the easy way because we're doing good enough anyway. So why not?
Right. And we're kind of a product of our own demise too, because as we get those warranty increases going from 120, 130 to 280, 290, guys, that's such an increase to the bottom line. They're hiding behind it.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for being candid with us.
It's just being very honest.
Yeah. Appreciate it. All right, Tully, I'm going to give you a chance here. So what, I saw the thumbs down. So obviously that's angering you very, very deeply over there. How would that situation get handled with the Nilo group?
Well, we don't allow that to happen, but here we go. If we're talking about retention, as Marco wants to come to Sacramento and work for me, we pay for the inspection and video. Why do we pay? Should a technician work for free? No, the answer is no. And if we pay the technician, guess what we can demand? We can demand excellent in inspections and in videos. Remember, we're recommending things we'd recommend our family members. So now when we pay them to do a quality, we can inspect, have contests around those items. But here we go. What's the best car for Marco to work on? The one in the parking lot or the one on the rack?
The one on the rack, baby.
The one on the rack. And here we go. If we take great pictures and videos, right? Not a Steven Spielberg picture, a video. We needed about 45 seconds to a minute, and tell them all about it. And our technician is saying, these are things that are needed attention immediately, right? Not red items, because nobody knows what red items, a red caliper, what does that mean? I don't know, right? They need immediate attention, and your service advisor will get back to you. We want the technician to say, this is what's needed, and then take pictures of all those red items. That is the trick. Have the urgency of that customer know, wow. 2, you've got to make sure you're doing those inspections properly, as we talked about briefly. How do you make sure that an inspection, if I brought my mother's car to any of your stores, would you be okay to have that person inspect the car? And the answer should be absolutely yes. Under-recommending and over-recommending are the same thing in my book, is non-tolerant, right? So we have to make sure we're doing those inspections. So what? The customer believes in us, because there's 3 things to sell stuff: price, time, and trust. And time is what we can manage the best. Trust has to be earned, money has to be had, and time is what we can manage. So what we want to do is make sure that we're working with time management for the customer to make sure we sell those great recommendations we sell our family members. The quality of the video to me is so important. As we look at the big three that we like to talk about this month, especially, is brakes, batteries, and tires. That drives retention, because what business are we in? We are actually in the retention business, and we sell 4 things at a car dealership. Cars, F&I products, most important, hours, and parts. But our goal is to drive retention. And if we sell those 3 things, so who can help us sell those 3 things? Great technicians like Marco's taking quality videos to say these things are needed today, right? And then what the goal is at the needle company, and it's a struggle, is turn the camera around and look in the camera and say, my name is Marco. I'm here working on your great Land Rover. Marco, I got a stall for you. Here we go. This is what's needed at your car, right? And thank you so much. Your service advisor will be back with you shortly. That's how we can help drive retention. That's how we drive retention for our customers and our technicians. Pay the tech.
Absolutely. Well said. And, we've talked about the role of video in a number of different ways. Like you said, both as an advantage to the customer, but also as an advantage to the technician, and helping the technician kind of think bigger and market themselves and become the go-to person when that person brings their car in. I can tell you just from my own experiences, and again, I'm not going to name names, I've never been offered that. I've never been offered pictures, video, anything when I bring my car in. How long have you guys been using the video tool, Tully?
So when I came to the Needle Company 6 years ago, as of yesterday, we started videos 6 years ago. Now, I would say we've been 100% video probably for the last 4 years.
Okay.
That's when I started paying the technicians, because my goal is to convince people that this is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Telling them what to do. Shon's down there going, you need to do this. People are going to say, no, thank you. As we convince them that this is the right thing to do. I want Marcos to say, I want to be in front of that camera. I want to show the customer what's needed so I can sell those great hours. That's the convincing. So 4 years ago, we started paying on inspections, and we said, if the shop is under 90%, you will get 2 tenths instead of 5 tenths. We've been 99% from 4 years ago.
Beautiful.
Wow, that's strong.
It's awesome, man. Thank you, Tully. Appreciate it. Robert, I want to come to you. I want to give you a crack at this. What are you guys doing within the group? And I know at this point you're overseeing multiple locations yourself. Has the MPI been, kind of a pushback like Shon said, or is it something that's automatically implemented? Are you using tech the same way as Tully? What do you guys have going on?
Well, first, I'm probably just going to walk off camera now. After Tully speaking there, I don't think I can really call that up.
I usually
that was just pure gold there, Tully. No, but so what I'm directly dealing with, I'm kind of in a mix of what Shon has. I have one store that absolutely just destroys the video and is completely all over it. We have the shop led by that. The main shop's doing it. The express techs are doing it. Quality videos. They're just knocking it out of the park. And I got my other store technicians, very similar to what Shon's dealing with. They're making 170 to 200% productivity throughout the shop, and they could care less. So it's been an uphill battle getting it going. But one of the things that we did to try to help alleviate that and kind of push the situation is our yearly awards program for the technician is tied into their electronic multi-point and their video multi-point. So where we had technicians that may have been consistently winning year over year because they were a top producer in the shop, if they're not keen and up to date with wanting to change with the technology and the times and what we're trying to do and grow as a company, it kind of pushes them away, and it gives somebody another chance who's a little bit below them that wasn't doing as well to actually kind of step up and take the lead in the shop and really kind of pioneer this for us. So it's definitely a switch. It's good though. I mean, a lot of these guys will tell you, if you look at the numbers that are involved with them, we have stores in our group that are up $200 to $300 a copy with video MPI versus a traditional MPI or even a no MPI situation. So the numbers are there. The support is there for it. It's really just getting on board. There's really no negative to it. And if you do work the lane, you sit on the lane, you get out there and you actually listen to the customers. very active right now in all the stores and trying to get them developed. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to the customers come out and talk to my advisors. And the first thing out of almost every customer's mouth is, "Hey, that video is awesome. That was really cool to get that video." And it's really, it's that visualization, like Tully, everybody said here, it's that transparency piece of it, of what we're looking for. As Marco said, you start hitting the yellow, the red, they really start believing in it. They really start trusting you. They really believe in what you're doing with that process, and that you're not there just to try to sell something to them. You're trying to give them true advice on their vehicle, true workmanship that's going to kind of last long, and that you care about where their vehicle is and how it's going to kind of stand and go. So, for me, I'm all in. I believe in it, as we kind of probably all fought it in the beginning. We do pay for it. I give Tully some kudos for that. He said he paid for it. So we are compensating our technicians in that regard to make sure that we're getting quality videos out of it as well, because I don't want a 30-second flip phone kind of static picture that says, "Here's your brakes, tires, batteries, have a good day." We want something quality out of it. We want them talking about it, and we want them really kind of sharing everything and making it personal. I can tell you one flip thing, and not many have kind of touched on it, and maybe Marco can shed some light on it too. One of the weirder kind of concepts we've been getting out of the shop technician is, what do I need an advisor for now on the process of this? Because I'm doing their work. But I think the realization, and Marco said, a lot of that is, and I think Tully or Shon, I forget who said it, but a lot of what you're doing is selling yourself in that regard as the technician. And the work that you're recommending, the work that you're putting out there, is your name that's on that, not the advisor's name. So when you're sharing out what needs to be done on the vehicle, when you're the face to what's being shared on the vehicle, that advisor's there doing the legwork and the paperwork and the instrumental pieces that help kind of get the next step of it done, to keep you in the bay, in the stall, turning hours on that vehicle right there. So
sure, yeah. I mean, I've had some long conversations with advisors on the phone. That's not something a technician has the time to do. So I think there's still a role there in that customer service aspect. But yeah, I see no problem with getting the tech more customer facing. It can only benefit everybody. Something I like that you mentioned, and Shon, I think you've kind of used this as well in your shop, is that kind of leaderboard aspect that you threw out there, Robert, the peer pressure, right? Where it's like, yeah, money's good, money matters, and we're making our money now, but you start comparing them to their peers, and hey, you're behind this guy. That competitive nature kicks in, and all of a sudden it's like, all right, well, maybe I should start taking this more seriously.
Yeah, we post that in every store, Joe.
Yeah, it's big. This is getting that. They've been doing it on the sales floor for years. You turn it into you put it up there on a leaderboard, you show who's doing what, and all of a sudden everybody's feeling a little sheepish about not doing them. So obviously to varying degrees, but you guys, and usually we have a few more fixed ops leaders with us here, but you guys obviously are at the forefront. You guys are exceptional leaders, and to hear the things that you're doing, and then, like I said, given my experiences with some local stores where I'm not seeing that stuff, and it feels like a no-brainer to me.
Hey, Joe, so one thing you got to think about is that when we talk about all these MPIs, and we talk about the leaderboards, and we talk about doing great inspections, is that we need to show the technicians how well they're doing because of what they did. And what we've used is the percent of hours that are tied to great recommendations we'd sell our family members. So you sold 43% of the hours that you sold last month were because of those great recommendations.
There you
right?
go.
And I think that if you show them the success and realize, oh my God, I didn't realize it was that much, because what do they all think? Oh, these people can't sell snow to an Eskimo. They can't sell anything. But normally we sell about 50 to 60% of everything we ask for, right? But the goal is that we need to show the technician how many hours they made. Show them, wow, God, you do an incredible job. Look what the video did for you. Look at those great MPIs did for you. You got 40% of all your hours from those great recommendations.
And how do you present that to them, Tully?
Screens, and then we also do performance reviews on a monthly basis, and that's one of our key indicators, right? Are you doing recommendations, and what your percent of hours? Two is that we also want to look at work. We work on their work mix, make sure they're not too heavy in warranty or customer pay, whatever. And then our goal is recs per vehicle on a mileage band, because one recommendation per could be a good measurement for a car that has 12,000. But it surely would not be one recommendation on 100,000 mile car. So we look at those recommendations because we do not want to over or under recommend a car.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you. Robert, I have a quick question for you as well. You mentioned quality of the video, which is something I didn't really think of. And when you turn it into, kind of a competitive nature, you start bonusing people for doing them, that is a concern that they're just whipping through it so they can say they did it. How are you guys kind of, inspecting what you expect?
So the platform we use, thankfully, has I can go in and I can actually spot check and review the videos. But the biggest one is, video length is reported back in a lot of the reports that we can see on the videos. So when you're spot checking them and seeing what they're doing on them, you can see them. But a lot of it is, I asked the advisors review them as well, because one of the things we did, and some of the other stores probably do it as well, is, we built the trust with the technicians to the point where the video does not go through a mediator. We trust that they're giving the quality video MPI and it's going right to the customer. So there's no buffer there for us. We allow that to go right out to the customer, and then we follow that up with, the advisor follows up with what they need to do. But the platform we use has a good enough reporting base on it to give us the ability to see video length and quality length. And, we took the barriers out too. Guys were complaining they didn't want to put the product on their phone, didn't want to download an app, didn't want to do anything with that. So, I stepped up. We purchased iPads for the stores, and we have the equipment out there. So if they don't have it, they don't want to use it on their personal stuff, we have the equipment there as well. And I think that's key to kind of jump over any of the hurdles that are there, just kind of moving them all away so they have no definitive reason to say no, other than they're just saying at that point.
Right. I didn't think of that. That's a lot of trust going straight from the technician to the customer. There's some things that could go wrong there. That's but like you said, entrusting them to do that and saying, hey, we're not going to babysit you here. You guys are adults. You understand the value in it. Here's why you're doing it, and do it the right way.
Well, one skill I think I always saw as an advisor and then to a manager with the technicians, and the complaint of the MPI when it was not on an electronic base, and Marco probably lived through this too, is the fear is that the advisor is not giving those recommendations to the customer. So if you can eliminate those barriers in the beliefs in the technicians, regardless if it's happening or not, it helps ease their mind and gives them that ability to know what they're presenting is being presented all the time.
Makes sense. Thanks, Robert. Thanks, everybody. This was a great one. Every time we get done with one of these, and we say, hey, it was one of our better panels, but this was exceptional, and tying it back into, retention, which, like I've said, goes hand in hand with recruiting. So thanks, guys. That was great.
Can I ask a follow-up, Joe, of both Tully and Marco? Well, we just heard it from Robert about the no buffer. Tully, no buffer on that video MPI coming from the tech. And again, same question for Marco.
So we run those through the service advisor, because we send the video as part of the quote. So it's a package thing. I'm not sure if I'm ready for that yet. I believe that our videos are high quality, but I'd rather not have the customer get two communications. I'll always give the one communication with the video, and then the explanation of what's needed.
That makes sense.
And Marco, same question. Is there a buffer at your location?
In our process, it is part of, like what Tully is saying, the final presentation to the customer. So the people are actually looking at the video beforehand. But we are very customer-centered, very customer-facing. There is not a single technician in our shops that, walks around cursing like a sailor or inappropriate responses. We're all very, very political, very customer-oriented. So, but our process is that at first it goes through not really a review process, but it does get seen before it gets sent out.
Okay. And Tully, I know you've been. Thank you, Marco. Tully, I know you've been perfecting this for a long time. When I was out there, I saw you doing it also. In terms of length of the video, you said how long? About a minute or 45 seconds better, or what?
We're targeting that minute, that 45 seconds to a minute. So what we really want is the introduction of the technician. We're working on turning that camera around, which is hard. Picture of underneath the car. People love to look at their car. Picture, and then as the video goes through with the brakes and tires, you read off the measurements. And if anything else is needed, I have taken pictures and video of those things that need immediate attention today. We, in the video, take pictures of every red event.
Great job, everybody. Joe, I was looking today on Facebook, and I want to congratulate you. I see that 27 years ago today, Craig Lockard says that AutoMax recruiting and training got its start. 27 years, Joe. So congratulations.
27th birthday. Thanks, guys. I've been here for almost 20 of them. Pretty remarkable. I remember my dad starting this, and I'm thinking in my head, I was probably 19, but I'm thinking, what the hell are you doing, Dad? I mean, yeah, because he had good jobs. He was GM running a couple stores, and he just out of nowhere, he's like, hey, I'm going to do this. He'd write up little stick figure ads to place in help wanted newspaper sections, and just pray that people came into the stores, and it's done well. It's done pretty well. So thank you.
And Joe, you work with dealerships throughout the country. And I know fixed operations has now become a huge part of what it is that you do. You work with a lot of dealers here on the Roundtable.
Yeah, it's probably 65% of our overall recruiting. Our open recs right now are all in the fixed ops world, not just technicians, advisors, management, everything down to porters. We do it all.
All right. So if somebody watching wants to reach out, Joe, and maybe has some questions, everyone's looking for technicians. Everyone I know. What's the best way, Joe? How do we reach out?
Sure. And I'm all over social media. You can catch me on LinkedIn or Facebook. My email's running across the bottom there. Our website is automaxrecruitingandtraining.com. And my cell phone is listed down there. So anytime, you just want to call, pick my brains, see what we're seeing out there, and see if we can help out. I'm always willing to talk. I always love talking fixed ops.
Well, Joe, thank you for all you do for the industry. We appreciate
Absolutely.
you.
My pleasure.
Everybody, on behalf of the fixed ops community, I want to wish all of you and your families next week a very happy Thanksgiving. And we're greatly appreciative to all of you. You've all become anchors of the Roundtable. Marco, it all started with that lunch in Orlando. And look what happened, right? So here we go.
Ted, can I take a minute to thank you? Ted, you're an exceptional human being, and I appreciate you doing all this. And and you reached out to me a few years ago through Michelle McLean. And
yeah.
It's been absolutely amazing for us, the company, and me, just as a person getting to know you. I really appreciate it, Ted.
Well, great. Everybody, you guys are all wonderful. So again, thanks. And again, long-standing panel, this TechVengers panel. So I think we're still near the beginning. Okay, so I want to thank Joe Lockard, Tully Williams from the Nilo Company on the West Coast. Tully, we're going to see you in March, I understand, for a pop-up event out at your location. So
can't wait to have you come out, Ted.
All right. I'm working on Joe for that one too.
Yeah, I'm going to try and be out there. I'm going to try and be out there. I think I can make it happen.
And what's happening? There's something happening that night, that Superstar Club, Tully?
We have the Superstar event, which will celebrate our millionaire riders and our 3,000-hour technicians. So it'll be a super exciting evening.
How many people coming to that?
About 150 to 200. We have we also include the millionaire F&I managers and the 200-unit salespeople. So we make it a huge event for the entire store. Give out trophies. We make fun of them. It's a lot of fun.
And you're giving out those jackets too, I understand.
You have jackets there, a special jacket with the embossment of the Superstar Club.
And what is the club for the technicians? There's a name for that too.
3,000 Superstar, the 3,000 Club.
All right. You've got to be there for that, Joe. I think it's going to be a huge winner. So, Tully, thank you for all you do. Robert Miggs, fantastic to see all the growth that you are experiencing as part of Carter Myers. So, thank you for all you do.
Hey, go Cowboys. I'm sorry, guys. Just got to say it.
Shon Kingrey, thank you again for all you do. And,
yes, sir. Thank you.
Are you stopping at 2 magazine covers now on Fixed Ops Magazine? You're going for a third?
Time will tell, sir. Time will tell.
All right. Marco, thank you for everything that you guys do.
My pleasure.
Amazing. And Don Andres, welcome to the club. So
glad to be here. This was fun.
Yeah, great panel, everybody. Everybody, for more information, reach out to Joe Lockard. As he said, he's on social media. You can find them easily. You can find them on the web. You see the URL scrolling at the bottom. You can call or text Joe. I text Joe very often at that number that's scrolling at the bottom of the screen. And he is quick to respond. So thank you, AutoMax, for all you do in hosting this panel. The AutoMax TechVengers panel here with us today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
At AutoMax Recruiting and Training, we've helped recruit, screen, and place over 180,000 retail automotive professionals in every department. Along with our robust in-person training programs, with AutoMax, you'll be pushing the hire button in no time. AutoMax Recruiting and Training. Any other retail automotive talent search is positively primitive.
BG Experience provides a window into today's vehicle systems, including the engine, brake, driveline, and cooling system. You will learn about how each system functions, the challenges they face, and BG Products' preventative maintenance solutions to these challenges. BG Experience is used by automotive trade schools and service centers to educate students, technicians, and service advisors. The ability to see how individual components of complex vehicle systems interact in motion provides a more visceral understanding than older training methods. We partner with over 50,000 shops and service centers around the globe. BG Experience is an essential tool to engage and educate automotive professionals worldwide.
School is in session with the Northwood University Fixed Operations class featuring Mike Stoll.
Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Sarah Vantine here with Ted Ings. We are coming to you live at Northwood University. Ted, we have an incredible panel with us today.
We do. We have the Northwood University Fixed Operations class with two students, Hanna Wood and Zach McLeod, and led by none other than Mike Stoll from CDK. Everybody, welcome to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Ted, thanks for having us, and we appreciate what you and your crew does to support and put out good news about the preeminent greatest automotive university in the United States, Northwood University. So thanks again for coming, Ted. We appreciate you.
And Mike, I think we get a chance now to see it close up when we come here to Northwood. So tell us a little bit about the Fixed Operations class. We've heard so much about it and your involvement. In fact, Sarah, I think we need to call Mike Professor Stoll when we have him here on stage.
Well, that's awful kind. So CDK is heavily invested, Ted, in the future development of the future leaders in America, in North America, and wherever they might want to go across the globe. We have a learning lab here, where they can do live in process training, on the system itself. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to hang out with Hanna and Zach and their classmates in a fixed operations class. And we had a problem that we posed to the students this year to solve what Brian was talking about earlier, and that's the $420 billion customer pay labor market in North America and the defection of those customer pay labor customers to the independents, right? And we challenged them with a workflow design to win back those customers and how to keep them and sustain the growth. And I'll let Zach and Hanna talk about what they're doing, how they're doing it. They're designing a workflow, and then what the end game is when we have some dealers actually come in and challenge them on the project.
All right. Well, Hanna, I know I'm looking forward to hearing more about it. So tell us a little bit about the class and the great work that you folks are doing.
Yeah, so we split up into two groups. We have the service and then we have the customer. And so Zach and I are actually on the same team. We're on the service team. And then after a little while, we'll be going through a workflow. And so we're trying to split up each section of how a customer walks in all the way down to right when they leave and when they need to come back. So once the class is coming to an end, we go and we present it to dealerships, and it's just going to be great. It's the fact that we have this kind of opportunity to even present something like this to real professionals out there. It's something that I'll always be grateful for, and that's something only Northwood can offer.
So Zach, actually taking this out to real dealers and presenting them with the solutions that you've helped develop and getting their feedback.
Yeah, I think it's a really fun project to do solely because we're also learning to put this whole process together, but then pitch it to the dealership. That's something that not everyone gets to do in our class and gets to do in other classes as well. So I think Northwood has that big opportunity for us to really be working with those dealers and see that whole thing come together. Sorry.
No, Hanna and Zach, so it's incredible that you're going out to dealerships and getting to apply what you're learning in class with Mike into the real world. So what would you say has been, most impactful for you going through this process in this class? Hanna, I'll start with you.
Okay, so I would have to say the most impactful part I've had is we've had to get back up. I mean, Mike Stoll is such a great person, but he broke it down for us, and we're going even deeper than just surface level. We're getting down to something that not just trying to fix a problem, but we're trying to make it to where the dealership can actually use what we're learning and what we're trying to develop and bring it into their workspace.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I think that working through this whole process, you think you scratch the surface, and then there's a whole nother layer underneath it where it's, what about this? What about this? What are we going to do if this happens? And that whole process just keeps digging deeper. So I think for us, we have the time and luxury to be able to dig a little bit deeper and go through that whole process again and again and again. So I think that's a really nice idea that we have.
We broke them up, Ted, the consumer side and the service department side, right? So we took half the class and said, okay, you go in this room and you think like a consumer, and how do I want to be treated from the online process all the way into when I show up? And we said, okay, service side, you take from opening the reparator all the way through the technicians, the parts department, communication back to the consumer in order to improve the customer experience. So we didn't design this for what's good for all car dealerships. We took the focus of what's good for the consumer. Because at the end of the day, it's their love and their respect and their customer experience that we have to win back to Automotive. And what was fun is they're in the middle of this. I've been not in class for the last week, but the customer class looks like this from workflow. It's really cool because they know what they want. But when you get to the dealership side, it's broke. It's very actual what's happening right now. So next week, what we're going to do is we're going to crisscross a couple of the students from the service side to the consumer side and flip them over so they can start aligning the process. And then what actually happens, we have several dealers in the market that really look forward to coming up and enjoying this. It's not a debate, but the students know the workflow. They're trying to win back the customer pay labor. They're trying to get from 300 to 500 in customer pay labor, but the customer experience is the important part, right? And how do we win them back and keep them and retain them? So when they come in, they actually challenge. I didn't get them into the details yet, the students, but they actually challenge the workflow. And then the cool thing is, Hanna mentioned it already, they get to go out to the dealership and present the workflow that they designed to all the leadership group at the store. Wow. And then the end goal is maybe there's an opportunity for Hanna, maybe there's an opportunity for Zach, where the dealership personnel say, you know what, there's some brightness here, there's some newness here, there's some freshness here, and let's figure out how we can provide a career opportunity or a future opportunity for the students.
So Hanna first and then Zach, you're presenting that to the leaders at the dealership, real leaders. Can that be a little intimidating at times?
Oh, yeah, very well could. Before we started the class, we went and we saw specific service dealerships just down the road from Northwood. And so we got to see what it was like. We got to see what we liked and what we didn't like. And from there, we have to build off of that. And it's definitely scary, especially because we're both on the service side. Like, not saying the customer side was much easier, but it's hard to get knocked down so many times. And hopefully soon we can crack the code. We still have so much time left, but it's definitely nerve-wracking.
Yeah,
Zach?
I would definitely agree. I think that it's a little nerve-wracking to get in front of dealers, especially a decent amount of them, and tell them that there's places you can improve. I think not a lot of people want to hear that they could make some improvements, but I think now, from a young perspective, that's something we really have to offer, and that's something Northwood really fosters, is having young people in charge of making changes in the industry. So I think for us in the automotive, especially in the fixed op side, we can be that generation that kind of pushes everything forward and is able to make that change that's needed, I would think.
So Hanna, it sounds like perhaps some of the dealers or dealer people have challenged you, on some of the things you've presented.
Yes, they have, yeah. And it's hard, especially the first week. That's what you start with is, hey, we don't like this, we're going to work on it, and then we're going to come back in 18 weeks and we're going to tell you what to be better about. And so I definitely think that it's something that challenges also us to say, well, us students can do better. And so
what's interesting to me, Ted, is that Northwood University provides this automotive platform for these students to get to the OEM, to get to the aftermarket, to get to the retail. And when we go through the fixed operations side, it's not glamorous. Everybody wants to be up on the sales side and everybody wants to be up, doing the sales side. But when they sit and go through the fixed ops thing, they actually start to get enthused about what the opportunities, could be for them. And we've had several students that have been through this over the last couple of years that are now being very successful, service advisors, assistant service managers. One of them's on a director's path already. So we're starting to see the fruits of the labor, of what they're doing, but it's hard. And they're not afraid to ask me questions and challenge me on what I'm talking about, because they say, Mike, you know what? We love you, but we think the consumer needs this. So that type of dialogue is very, very encouraging to me, and it's what keeps CDK involved in the development and the growth of these future leaders.
And Mike, I imagine all of these problems that you're solving in this classroom give the opportunity to really enhance the technology that you're also providing to both the dealer and the consumer.
Well, I'm going to let Zach speak on that, because he not only is like Hanna, a bright future leader, he took it very seriously and took his car into a dealership recently to get it worked on, and he actually got behind the scenes. So you might want to share about.
I did. Yeah, not completely by choice, getting your car towed into the store, but it was a good process to be able to see from the consumer side. I think that everyone does things a little bit differently, some better than others, and that's where you get to see those differences when you're really living it, bringing your car in, you're waiting for the call, say that your car's done, you're going through the RO, you're seeing your price, everything of that sort. So I think to see that and be a part of it has really helped me through the project as well. That way I can really be kind of undercover in a way to see how everything's working.
In a good way.
In a good way.
In a good way undercover. So back to your comment, Sarah, that technology helps, but what we're coaching is the workflow design. And of the industry itself, when you ask an automotive group, do you have a written workflow for every individual service customer, every time, every way, all the way through the channel? It's about 35% right now. So what they're actually designing is a workflow that could be in practicum out in the marketplace in a best practice. So as you design a workflow for every customer every time, and with the end game of getting the consumers to be able to come back in, then you just lay that workflow down on the technology to create those efficiencies, and you increase the customer paid labor, you increase the customer's love for your organization, and everybody wins.
Well, Mike Stoll, congratulations to you and CDK for leading this here at Northwood University. Nothing like it in the industry. Hanna Wood and Zach McLeod, congratulations to both of you in the fixed operations class for all the good work that you're doing. Everybody, you're hearing an example at home of not only the real world application that students get here at Northwood, but I think also of the networking, all right, and the engagement and involvement with real people in the industry. So we're very humbled to be here at Northwood. Sarah Van Tyne and I, we are going to be right back.
Attention all US-based new car dealerships. Are you ready to unlock a new revenue stream in 2025? Selling parts online isn't just an option anymore. It's essential. With Revolution Parts, you can transform your parts department into a profit powerhouse. And the best part? We're offering 2 months of services completely free when you sign up before December 31st. Here's how it works. Pay for implementation costs now and start seeing those costs paid back immediately. With 2 free months, you'll be profitable in no time and fully equipped to hit the ground running in 2025. There's no better time to upgrade your parts department with modern tools and processes. Revolution Parts is your partner in growth. Let's make 2025 the most profitable year yet.
It wouldn't be a Fixed Ops Roundtable event without this next speaker. Put him in, coach. It's John Traver from Traver Connect.
Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Sarah Van Tyne here with Ted Ings and John Traver, Chief Executive Officer of Traver Connect. Ted, it's always a pleasure to have John on the roundtable with us.
It is. And the fact that you and John and I can all be together here at this time of year and at such an important time in our industry. John Traver, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Ted and Sarah, thanks for having us back. Great to see you both.
John, you've got a lot on the go. We had a chance to meet some of the team at Traver Connect at the pop-up that just happened at Northwood University. Thank you for your support of that, and an exciting time in our industry for Traver Connect.
It is. It is. The business continues to find its place in helping dealers make experience matter, and this time of the year is no different for us. Thanks again for what you do at the Fort with Fixed Ops Roundtable, a forum where we can come together around fixed ops, around the consumer who's not in our meetings here, but who we gather for. So exciting times for real.
And John, here we are now squarely in the fourth quarter. Tailgate touchdown. I'm looking forward to what you have to share today. So I'm going to let you go ahead and take it away.
Well, you really put the ball on the tee for us this time, because football season, check. And, you kind of opened a door for me this time, Ted. I got to say, first of all, the crew that, stands on the fort for us and leads the way, incredible crew. And each of you I know personally as well as professionally. And I value each of you deeply. Today, I'd like to pick our defensive coordinator out for a second and just celebrate this guy a little bit. Shon Kingrey, Ted, sometimes when you get to know people, some of them bleed a different color. You know what I mean? And I got to say, in no deference to you or Sarah or Ed or Tully, this guy bleeds a special color. He bleeds cheese, brother. This guy is from my home state, Wisconsin. and I mean, it just doesn't. Shon, this is your moment. I'm teeing you up, buddy. So represent us, okay, in those meetings with the Fort. And by the way, a recent photo of none other than my Green Bay Packers snagging a catch in the end zone over the Chicago Bears. God bless the Bears. All right. So with that being said,
John, Shon is, as you know, is a diehard Green Bay Packer fan. I mean, wow,
Yes, I know. We may or may not have spoken about it once or twice. So I just thought I'd put a little grease on metal for Shon and give him a little bit of wind in his sails, if you will. So let's start with the football theme and see if we can't tie this into fixed ops today. Football, I would say, has at least three parts, and I'm going to pick these three to talk about. I think, Ted, one part is obviously the great athletes making the great plays on the gridiron. That's certainly a component of football that gets us all excited. I think another part is what happens maybe before, during, and after the game. It's the camaraderie, very much like the Fort here. We do stuff like you've done with the pop-ups. In this case, it's tailgating. And there are some organizations and teams where it's a culture. Green Bay, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, the Texans, and more for sure. So the tailgating. And then finally, Ted, there's the stats, It's the yards, it's the interceptions, it's the big plays, and everything is measured very much, Ted, like in fixed ops. Everything is measurable. Now, what's fascinating to me is football is also fantasy. And I'm not sure that correlates a whole great deal with fixed ops, but in fantasy football, per Statista, it's an $11 billion industry today, and it has over 50 million players in the U.S., and it all spins off of engaging people in the sport. So fantastic. It crosses over all kinds of lines. So with that being said, I think if you know a little bit about football, there's a story going on inside of football, very much like fixed ops, that's unique, Ted. There's always these two tensions, two themes that you can draw out of football. That first picture I showed you was the play that maybe changed that game. Maybe not. And that's the first thing I would tell you, is that in football, there's a play, sometimes it changes the entire outcome of the game. It could be the last play of the game. Could be a play at the end of the half. It could just be a play that kills a drive. But there's a play that changes the game. Ted, I would say that probably is true in fixed ops. The second thing is,
John, can I bring this back to the Packers for a moment?
Come on. Well, I hope you will.
The great coach Vince Lombardi said that every game comes down to just a couple of plays, no more than 5, that will decide the game. And we don't know when or where they're going to happen. So we have to go all out, John, right on every single play.
Ted, I'm looking for my helmet right now. If you keep preaching like this, I'm ready to rumble. I got to tell you something. You nailed it. It really often comes down to just that couple few plays. But Ted, I said there's really 2 tensions. And if you watch enough football, you'll hear this theme throughout football, or you'll see it. And that is plays, and I want to emphasize the next 3 words, set the tone of the game. You see, there are teams, Vince Lombardi, using your take, he also said, he was there for 2 years. The first year was that they had been losing for over a decade. Vince Lombardi called his wife and said, honey, this year's different. We're going to win. They were a playoff team the first year. The second year, they made it to the NFC Championship game. They were leading in the fourth quarter. They lost to the Philadelphia Eagles. Everyone was dismayed because they felt like they should have won the game. The next year in training camp, the famous Lombardi holds the football and he says, do you remember, Ted? Gentlemen, this, go ahead, Ted, is a football. So as to say, we're going to start with the basics. And it was always about setting the tone with the run game for them. Well, in fixed ops, I would say there are also some out there who consistently perform because they're good at that. So the question is, well, let me just highlight these 2 for a second. You mentioned Joe Clemente earlier. Joe, we are so thankful to have Joe on our team here at Traver Connect. Joe is our executive vice president. Mm-hmm. And speaking of football, Joe he's a Washington Commanders. He's a fanatic, Ted. He's a fanatic. He's got some stories that'll blow your hair back. And then, we have another Joe. Both these guys visited you at Northwood recently.
Yes.
At your pop-up event. Joe's our national director of business development. And Joe also has a team. Joe is he's a Chicago Bear fan.
Is he really? Wow.
Yeah, Ted, if I break out in hives right now, will you let me know? Anyways. So what was really interesting, Ted, is about a month ago, these 2 guys, their teams faced off. I said the play that changed the game. Well, that game went back and forth. And I know Joe Link right now is going to roll over and curl up and probably start sobbing. But there was a Hail Mary pass that went over 65 yards in the air. It ricocheted off some Chicago Bears and landed in the hands of a wide receiver waiting for the ball in the end zone to win the game for Joe Clemente's Washington Commanders. Ted, that was the play that changed the game. Now, the question, plays that set the tone. If you ever watch the coaches walk the sideline, you'll see them with these laminated sheets, and they're categorized: run game, pass game, 3rd down, 4th down, red zone. And these are the plays that they have installed and practiced during the week that they feel game situation wise will work. In fact, the great coaches, going back to the 49ers in the 80s, the first 20 plays were always scripted, right? For Bill Walsh and those great minds. And then eventually Mike Holmgren would continue that in Green Bay, so on and so on. So these are plays that are setting the tone of the game. And you're not trying to win the game with the first play of the game. You're setting the tone. So in fixed ops, Ted, the play that changed the game. I thought about this as I prepared this message for our group, because each time I want to spend time on how do we tie this message in? What's timely now? What do we need to be thinking about as a community in fixed ops in the U.S. here? And the play I think that changed the game, one of them, I would say, is mobile service, Ted. None other than our own Ed Roberts helping lead that charge, helping be bold enough to take risks, invest, and grow a fleet out, 50 plus vans. Who knows how many are even there now? I know it's more than 50. Wow. But Ed said, you know what? You can only build bricks and sticks in the back of the shop so quick. You got a convenience issue. Some customers can't get here. Why don't we make the stall mobile, put 4 wheels on it, take 2 folks, send them to the location. We'll do the service there. And so I think that play, Ted, is shifting the balance of the haves and have-nots. I think that is one of the plays of the game in fixed ops we should look at and consider. Now, am I telling you that the way to win in fixed ops is only with a play of the game? I'm not, but I want to make sure that you sort out the right stuff. I think this is one of them. Another one, I would say, Ted, it has to be EV. And obviously, when Elon Musk drove the patents for EV, he could have locked those suckers down for 20 years legally.
Well,
and for those that don't know, it's open source.
Is it?
I mean, yes, it is. He truly wanted to incentivize the industry to come around EV. Now, whatever our take is on EV, again, all I'm saying is these are two major plays that have happened and are happening that affect fixed ops. Would you agree with that in general?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Absolutely. So two big plays that change the game. All right. So now let's go to the other half. So what route do I take, right? So the audience might say, okay, John, so are you a play that changed the game guy, or are you plays that set the tone of the game? Well, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag and first say this. I'm both. And I think you should be too. I think you should be both. The play that changed the game, Ted, in 1996, Shon, Kingrey, and I were rooting on the Green Bay Packers. I was fortunate because I was sitting 20 rows up behind the Green Bay Packers at the Superdome as they embarked on the first Super Bowl win since, well, it had been a long time, the 60s.
Long time.
Yeah. Brett Favre was sitting in the hotel before that game. He tells a story how he's watching an old 49ers Super Bowl where Joe Montana checks down on the first drive against the Bengals, and he calls this particular route and play as an audible, and he throws a touchdown to take them up 7-0. In this particular game, they're driving against New England Patriots. The first play of the first drive of the game, he checks down to Andre Rison, who grabs it on the seam and takes it the distance for a touchdown. The famous picture of Brett Favre taking his helmet off when it was still legal and running across the field. Ted, I have goosebumps as I tell that story. That was one of those plays that changed the game for me in that game. But Ted, there were more. There was another play. My favorite Green Bay Packer of all time was Reggie White, the former Philadelphia Eagle as well. And Reggie took that game over at the end. It was still a 6-point game. And the Patriots were driving. 3 plays in a row, he had 2 sacks and 1 tackle for a loss, the 3 plays of that drive that ended their chances. Reggie White was dominant. And last but not least, he's still around today, Desmond Howard, the former Heisman winner. We signed him as a free agent that year. He had drafted by, I want to say it was Carolina as an expansion team. Sarah might be able to tell us. She might have been younger then. Yeah. And then he was with Washington, and then he was cut, and we signed him as a kick returner. He was the MVP of the game, the only special teams player to ever win the MVP of the game to this day, to my knowledge. And he had a punt return for a touchdown and a kick return that changed the game. Any one of those 3 guys, you could have called out those 3 plays, Ted, and said that changed the game. But you know what, Ted? I got to thinking. I said, well, how do I speak to the audience about football and plays that set the tone? And I thought, well, setting the tone really is about being consistently dominant over a great period of time. So I think the question in football I would ask is, let me go back to 1995. Since 1995, who are the winningest teams in NFL football? And Ted, you'll never believe this. In order to be winning that much over that amount of time, you got to set the tone. So I asked the big question, right? Teams with the most wins since 95. The top 4, Ted, guess who's in second place?
Yeah, the back.
Just 10 wins behind the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick and Tom Brady are Shon, Kingrey, and John Traver's Green Bay Packers. Ted, have I thanked you for allowing me to speak today yet? I'm having a great time. This is great, Ted. And I hope it's educational too. Now, that being said,
I love it, John.
Now, that being said, the Green Bay Packers had to do something right to consistently win that many games.
Yes.
That's my point. I know I'm having a little bit of fun today at the expense of others. But what I'm saying is they drafted 3 quarterbacks in a row. So maybe the draft was important for them. All 3 were tremendous quarterbacks. They had to do some other things offensively, whatever. So now we want to take and translate football to fixed ops. So in order to do that, Peter Drucker, and I've said this to the group before here, but you want, when you look at stats, you want to pay attention to the bend in the trend. Always remember the rhyme, the bend in the trend. People look at trends, but look at the bend, and that'll tell you something. That'll cause you to ask questions.
Okay.
So in automotive, I want us to look back over the last 6 years, because there's some things going on. We're going to look at 2019 through 2024. I'm going to use NADA data book. that rolls up data, financial statement data from all the dealerships, US, many of them, most of them, total US dealership count, RO counts. I'm going to look at some economics too, Ted. Okay. And then last but not least, I'm going to look at key personnel in our space.
Nice.
And with those 5 areas, I want to give a very, very clear direction of where there's an opportunity to grow in fixed ops and where there's an issue that we need to solve together. So I said dealership count first. Ted, the first thing I want to say is you and I both remember when this was 25,000 stores, 21,000 stores, 19,000 stores. But I often hear people quote declining dealer counts like in recent years. Ted, the facts are it's pretty level.
Sure.
It's 16,000 over 6 years. So again, there is no bend in that trend. Over the last 6 years, if you're a dealer and you're watching this show, you have about the same amount of retail dealership competitors as you did 6 years ago. Safe statement?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that's 1. So 2, let's look at RO counts. Now, Ted, this is where we slow this show down a little
And
bit.
I know you've been tracking this. You've been talking about this for just a little bit.
Ted, this is show 26. You could go back to show 5, and I was citing this.
That's right.
For 4 years in a row, we were over 300 million ROs. 2015, 16, 17, 18. And I might be wrong on 15. It might have been 16, 17, 18, 19. Bottom line, 300 plus million ROs. We peaked at 317 in the US. COVID occurred in 2020. So I'll give the stat. Okay, yeah, I get it. We were kind of shut down, handcuffed there for a good part of the year. We rallied and still recovered at 265. But Ted, look what happened. There's 45 million repair orders missing. I have one question. Why?
Yeah.
Why? It's not sales. It's not like we went from, 15 million units to 5 million units new a year. Okay. That's not the reason. Something has happened. And I'm going to lean into this today. That's 14.5% down over 6 years. Okay. So what does that look like at a dealership? Ted, if you and I are owning these stores or our partners who are watching this, in 2019, they were writing 16,800 plus ROs average, right? This is average, all stores. Okay. Total stores, total ROs. There's your formula. But since then, they're in the 15s, Ted.
Yeah. Look at that.
So you go, well, how do I pencil that? Let me tell you. That's about 225 repair orders a month, Ted. And your average blended, your blended RO value today in 24 is $478. I'll get to that in a minute. So what is 225 times 478? It's $107,000 a month.
A lot of money.
200 ROs is costing you $1,250,000 a year.
Well,
we got to figure out where those repair orders are. Okay. So next, 16.6%. This is no different than teams studying game film, Ted.
That's right. Yeah.
The week before or the week after and learning what's going on. We got to slow down and understand what's happening to assess and pivot and make a difference. Labor rate. Now, labor rate, Ted, what's interesting is we've grown $1.25, $1.30, and so on. What I do want to call out, though, is the tighter wallet. It's the first time I've ever seen it not change, Ted.
Yes.
I can't remember a pair of years where it's the same number on the NADA report. I went back multiple times, like I must have transposed that. I looked and I'm like, nope. Okay. So what's happened is I think you have customers in the drive. They're going, hey, bro, that's it. That's all I got. And I think the stores know labor rate is being squeezed a little bit. I may be wrong, but I want to give something to think about there. Okay. I'm okay being wrong. I'm comfortable with that. I'm wrong every day, Ted. Now, RO, dollars per RO. So customer pay, here's the journey. Up. We went down a little bit though, 24 from 23. Here's your warranty pay, up, right? And then here's your blended average. I always do a blended average RO. Now remember this.
That's how you got to 478. Okay.
Yeah, that's how I got to the 478. So domestics are different than imports, are different than luxury. I get it. Someone out there that has an entry level, franchise, and they're going, that would be great. I'd take the lowest number. I get it. But there are luxury stores that are looking at the number going, wow, I'd get fired if I was at. Remember, this is blended. All I'm trying to do is get us to a normal number here to get us started. We can extrapolate this and do luxury versus import versus domestic versus startup franchise, whatever you want. But the bottom line is the trend you're going to find is the same. The trajectory is the same. Okay. And that's what you want to take from this. So where do we go from here? So if that's the economic data, that's 31% up, that's 32% up, and then of course 31.5. Okay, good. So over 6 years, that's pretty good. So we got that. Now, service and parts revenue for the year, 7.25 in 2019. COVID, 6 3/4.
Yeah.
We bounced back 7.5, 8,
Back up.
8.5, 9.
Yeah.
Our run rate. June of this year, we're at 4.5 million on NADA. So I doubled it. So our run rate would be 9 million this year. So, Ted, there's one part missing. We're missing ROs, but we're still growing. So that means we're growing on the value of the RO. There's only 3 ways to grow a business, whatever business you got, right? Number of transactions, number of dollars per transaction, number of transactions per customer, right? So here we are at 9 million. So that's 20% growth. That's a 3.5 cager, right? So, all right. This is where it gets serious, Ted. Technicians. You remember, Ted, I'm in the business development space for automotive, right?
Sure.
Is Traver an economist? No, Traver's not an economist. But to me, this whole thing is an ecology. It all works together. And you want to look at this from a macro level and say, wait a minute, Ted, in 2019, we had 267,087 technicians on payroll per NADA in the United States. 3 out of the next 5 years, Ted, we would decrease from the previous year. In 2020, it went down. In 2021, it went down. And in 2023, it went down. Ted, over the time that we went from 7 million to 9 million in revenue out of service and parts in the average store, we've only increased the amount of technicians 1% over 6 years. It's not sustainable. Okay. Now I'm going to go a little bit deeper. This is a problem in business development, Ted, because if you're bad on the phones, if you sound good, but you're bad, I'm going to show you today what bad looks like. But this is like breaking down film, Ted.
Yes.
It's not going to jump out at you with the words on the screen. You got to know what to look for. Let me just spoil this real quick. We have more competitors than 17,000. We have 160,000 competitors fighting for auto repair. 160,000.
We sure do.
There's 9 of them for every one of us.
That's right.
Remember that.
Yep. And that's the real competition. Yeah.
Ted, when we call an independent or a chain, their average time to get somebody in is 1 to 3 days. Average. And by the way, I have study after study. Now I'm going to cite some of them here yet, probably after lunch today at this rate. Just kidding. But in our stores, that's not the case. And the reason is we got to have the people.
Yeah.
And our leaders need to understand the gap here. Okay. Listen to your service department calls. Watch your game film. Seeing we're doing the football theme.
That's what it is. Yeah, sure.
Did I thank you for the football theme, by the way?
I need to thank you, I believe.
Let me start with sales real quick. If you screw up on how you sold the vehicle, I'm not telling you to screw up. Ted, you know, I was on the BDC front end space for a quarter of a century, 25 years, right? I mean, I cut my teeth there. I'm a fan. But what I'm saying to you is when they're in service, they can forget what happened 3 to 5 years ago is what I want to say.
Sure.
If I can just say it. Okay. I'm not saying they will. I'm saying they could. But here's the thing. Every time they come to service, you know the question they're asking? Don't want to keep dating these guys? Should I buy? They're that much closer to the next purchase. We got to get that right. And the first thing they look at is scheduling. There's a little firm called JD Powers, and they did a study this year, 2024, relevant CSI study. In the CSI study, it's chock full of data. I mean, like the first 4 points, you're like, okay, that's enough. I already know where to look. But what they say in the study is the irony of service scheduling, the actual process of scheduling an appointment ties to loyalty. It's like a proxy for loyalty. If they have to wait if it's hard to get to somebody. 68% of customers are calling the store. Ted, when ADP bought my last company, Traver Technologies, in 2000, I spent the first couple of years going to Detroit and some other places and looking at online schedulers. And I tell this story every once in a while. I thought at that time, I was like, awesome, we're finally going to solve retention, and because we got online schedulers. 2005, we had like 6% penetration. I was like, geez. 2010, we had like 9. I'm like, really? 2015, we're at 13% per JD Powers. Okay, JD Powers this year says in the study right now, they say that the online service scheduling is 20% nationally. And it's, in quote, it's been there for a long time. Now, I just recently read some LinkedIn posts, the guys were talking about this, and they were stellar guys. They're guys that know their stuff. They're like, well, let me tell you how you fix that. And then they did that. So I'm not saying there's nobody out there above 20, but what I'm saying is I'm kind of impatient. 25 years is about all I got to wait on the customers to all move online. If they're still calling, I think we need to solve this. That's what I'm saying. Okay. So the last thing is service experience versus the purchase experience. I mean, you got to get the service experience right or else. So when you think of online versus on the phones, I kind of stole it already, but listen to your calls. You know, what I would say here is, you know, online versus on the phone, you got a ton of juice. Their study this year, you should go and look at it if you're not familiar with what it has. 68%, I quote, still make appointment over the phone. Online service schedulers hovered around 20% for a long time. So you got that. And then if you want to grow your RO count, you know, that 225 that are missing in the average store, the 100,000 a month in revenue, there's nobody listening right now that will say no to that. Everybody's leaning in going, hey, what do you got? And I do get calls on a regular basis like, are you aware? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm aware. But it's a compounded problem. It's not just one thing. It's, you know, do you have available slots in your scheduler? Some of these folks are setting too few slots available. So when the customer goes online, the first appointment they can get is 2 weeks from now. All right, and they can call the independent and get in tomorrow for real. Okay. Yep. Independents average 1 to 3 days. I've told you that. We're more than twice that for dealerships.
At least, yeah.
We have thousands of stores that we interact with every month here at Traver Connect, literally. And I'm telling you, that's the reality. Yep. Can I find you a store that I can get you in 3 days? Yeah.
Sure.
I need some time. Okay. They're special. They're special. The question, technicians, make sure that that's married up with your calls. Okay. Yeah. So I want to summarize it. World Metrics. I used a lot of data from World Metrics. I use those guys often. I got kind of 3 buckets for us here, Ted, to recap and finish up. Obstacles. I would say there's a few. There's 160,000 facilities. So we're not competing against, you know, 16,999. We're competing against 160,000. So there's 9 of them for one of us. 70% of those guys are independently owned and operated. What does that mean? They can pivot pretty quick. So stay nimble. That's what I would say. Average availability in those places, 1 to 3 days. For us, it's twice that or more. Only 20% of customers schedule online. That's an obstacle. We built the tools. We have the integration. They still don't really use it. You better solve that with the phones. And then 80% shortage of technicians. You want a little bit of good news? It's short there too at the independents, not just here. Okay. All right. So second category is conversion drivers. If I'm getting opportunities, how do I convert more? Or folks that are looking for service that maybe I didn't sell, conquest deals. How do we win? 76%, notice the word uppercase, rely. Ted, not prefer, not, you know, would like, they rely. So my question for you is, what do your online reviews look like? Okay. Secondly, 85% trust them. 80, and this is current data. This is 24 stuff. Average customer satisfaction scores for the independents is 4.5 out of 5.
Well,
okay. 90% offer some warranty on services. Warranty could be a promise.
You bet.
But most of our stores already have this, but we don't speak to it. So to me, I think in your marketing, in your messaging, I would add that. In your calls, I would add that. And then the wallet is tight today, Ted. And there are plenty of options that are service drive financing type tools that on the spot approval for $1,000 set of tires. You follow me?
You bet.
So make sure we're solving for that. And then the last category is opportunity drivers. Where are there opportunities? This one here I love because it shows us that most of the people calling that are or coming in for service, either they feel anxious. And you go, John, why is that an opportunity?
That's great.
I'll tell you why. Because we know. When you don't know, you can't do anything about it. You're hitting and missing all the time. If that's the way they run that play and we don't know, we don't study the film, you can't do anything about it. But to know it, let me ask you something. Are there other professions that require people that have a soft hand, like a nurse or a doctor or a dentist?
Sure.
So if they feel anxious, we can hire and train people. Train. What does that look like? Well, when they call in and they tell you what they need and you say, sure, I can help you with that. That's one way to respond. Or you could say, I can absolutely help you with that. I can certainly help you with that. I can definitely. Words that end in LY at the beginning of that call are 3x in terms of communicating comfort, and it tells that caller, I got the right person. Are you doing this? Because that's what you want to be doing. You can solve anxiety by having proper training and proper people. Most of them, 2/3 agree, I want to spend money with you on maintenance. I'm not trying nickel and dime and just get an oil change. I agree maintenance prevents major repairs. So are we saying maintenance is cheaper than repair? Over and over and over. At Chick-fil-A, the words my pleasure, not thank you, not you're welcome, not no problem. It's my pleasure. Took them 7 years to make that stick. Make sure maintenance is cheaper than repair is sticking on the lips of our people in service. Ted, the vehicles have gray hair. They're 12 years old. By the way,
Old as
Ted,
ever.
do I have any? You'll tell me when I have gray, right?
Yes, I'll tell you when it's coming.
Okay, good, good. Cars are older, which means they're going to spend more money and differentiate. We talked about how you can. That's an opportunity. Mobile van service, go to them. Pick up and deliver. We do retention moves here. A lot of moving parts to make it work, but those are the kind of things you should be thinking about. And then the bottom line, Ted, is you got to fix the phones like permanently. And so let me just hammer this home with one last point. If you've listened to the theme of football and fixed, you can see there's a need. There's a gap. We're missing ROs. We want to grow. What's the problem? I'm not telling you that's the only problem, but there's an old saying, and it happens in service and it happens in all kinds of businesses today. You got to have the right tool for the job. And Ted, I want to say this. If you don't have the right tool, any tool a person needs in their business, you're paying for, whether you have it or not, Ted.
Yeah.
So if it's a hammer and you don't buy the hammer, you understand that you're paying for all the jobs that go by that you don't get because you can't drive nails.
That's right.
If your phones aren't fixed, if we're not staffed properly with technicians, if we're not looking at the tools we're using, we're not making those investments, we're writing the check.
You bet.
Ed, always a pleasure. Whether it's training, whether it's execution, whether it's tools, in service business development, we'd love to come alongside you and make experience matter.
I hope our audience can see why Traver Connect is different, why they understand the industry, and why they're the best. John Traver, amazing information. And Sarah, a whole lot from there.
I always learn so much every time we get the opportunity to learn from John. So John, thank you for all you do for us in the industry.
Absolutely a pleasure. You guys know that. You're as much a part of what we're doing as anyone else. So thanks for making it possible.
John, on behalf of the Fixed Ops community, I want to thank you, wish you a happy Thanksgiving to you and your family and the Traver Connect family. And greatly appreciate being able to stand alongside you for these past many events since just about the beginning when we got started, and to come along for the ride.
Yes, and it is an absolute pleasure to walk it with you. Happy Thanksgiving to both of you, your families, your organization, and I'll pass your word on to ours.
Great. Everybody, the best in the business, John Traver, Traver Connect, traverconnect.com. Easy to find online and on social media, and a big part of our industry and a big part of our industry's future. John Traver with us today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Creating solutions for automotive business development has somehow stuck with me throughout my 40-year automotive career, including today, where Traver Connect's vision for creating business development results for your fixed operations, it continues to evolve. The one thing that has been constant perhaps is the change because of the industry, because of the customer, because of technology. Our mission though here at Traver, it's simple. In fact, it fits on a t-shirt, and the mission is 2 words: experience matters.
I've had the privilege of working alongside John Traver for over 3 decades. His original vision was creating both the BDC and BDM models for the industry, was one of his earliest works. It actually made a cultural shift in how the industry did business for the next 30 plus years. Like many of you, I was introduced to Traver as a client and was looking for that game changer to elevate my business. I learned over time that big wins didn't come from overcomplicated strategies. They're won on the front lines by consistently executing the basics. To accomplish that, you need the right people who have the time and are equipped to do the right things. What has changed, though, are the market conditions. Technology has evolved, customer interactions are more complex, and expectations have never been higher. Your customer experience today drives your revenue tomorrow. But with these changes come challenges. Catching every call, securing service business before it's lost, offering conveniences like pickup and delivery, or engaging AI to ensure the right conversations happen at the right time. Our experience matters. We're here to help our retailers pivot successfully, whether by doing it with them or doing it for them. The team we've assembled is obsessed with getting results, partnering with integrity, bringing a can-do attitude to make the customer, you, and our experience truly matter.
At Traver Connect, building solid and lasting relationships starts by making every customer interaction seamless. Our approach is simple. We focus on theirs, yours, and ours. Theirs, the customer experience. Yours, the dealership's success, and ours, the expertise we bring to make it all work. We transform everyday customer interactions into loyalty-building moments that create lasting relationships. It's not about doing more. It's about doing it consistently and cohesively. You decide what role you want us to play, big or small. We'll strengthen your connections and help shape the future of automotive service.
You might wonder, what are some of the common fixed ops BDC issues that we solve? Well, if you have less than 100% retention, 100% of your UIOs being retained, then we would play a role in due for service or due for first service, or an orphaned service customer. We can do the campaigns and we can make that happen, or we can duplicate that process at your store for your people to do. Special order parts, we don't want those sitting on the shelf. Recalls, incoming calls, the phones. So all we got to do is say the phones and we know. And that could be augmenting the team you already have or us doing it for you. We do both. And then education. We have an Experience Matters learning track available for dealers, and that's fixed ops directors, service managers, general managers, dealer principals. That's a wonderful, wonderful education forum on how to make experience matter at your dealership and all the tenets and points that go with driving it. And then we have a learning track separate for BDMs, and then we have a learning track for those new agents that are starting in stores. We do that remote, of course. So multiple ways that we are developing a learning track for Experience Matters. Today, we can support nearly any scheduling tool. We can poll, we can integrate to any dealership management system virtually, and we have created some of our own AI solutions that we use as middleware, supporting status calls and things like this. As margins have tightened throughout these tricky markets that we're navigating together, I believe having the right partnership to deliver essential business development results is the equivalent to having that play that grabs that next first down day after day after day for your dealership. So we'd love to learn more about your business development needs. Give us a call, please. Let's draw up your playbook together.